Chapter 165. One does not hit a smiling person, so Xiao Mu expressionlessly nodded her small head at him. Duan Yu's smile was brighter than a flower. Let's go, Jojo. Get on the carriage. Today, not only did the Mystic Cultivator Association send people, but the three sects also sent people. Arbor got on the carriage with a taut face and waited solemnly. Xiao Hu anxiously glanced at his sister, but when he saw that she had no intention of speaking, he also shut his mouth. The carriage started rolling and headed toward the western part of the city where the crowd was gathered. Many city citizens had gathered at the plaza on the western part of the city early in the morning after hearing the news. They lined up with their families and inquired about the news with each other. They never dreamed that the Mystic Cultivator Association would come today to try to activate the children's mystic meridians. If their children could successfully activate their mystic meridians and become mystic cultivators, they would definitely be able to change their current impoverished situation. They would no longer need to live in this tiny shantytown in the western part of the city. Life in the shantytown was difficult and resources were scarce, so theft and robbery often occurred. Whoever had the biggest fist was the law. 2 days ago, a young couple was unlucky enough to be robbed when they entered the shantytown. The only food they had in their bags was also plundered. Now, their lives were extremely miserable and they had to beg everywhere for a living. The chaotic western part of the city originally housed many people from other villages and towns. Because the Mystic Cultivator Association had set this place as the location for the children's test, the city lord sent people to chase away the refugees on the square and clean it up before the sun even rose. Hence, when Arbor's carriage arrived, the road was basically unobstructed. As the carriage rolled past the main street plaza, Xiao Hu lifted the curtain to take a look. The western part of the city isn't as chaotic as imagined. It's just a little tidying up because there are guests. Arbor didn't need to look to know what kind of scene this place usually was. Earlier, at Shizhou City's city gate. When the young couple refused to hand over their resources and came to live in the shantytown for free with a low-class sign, Mr. Zhang's meaningful gaze made it clear to Arbor that life in the shantytown might not be easy. In this kind of place where the strong preyed on the weak, a young couple with food would be robbed in a matter of minutes. Therefore, even if they didn't hand over their supplies, they wouldn't be able to keep their belongings. If they had handed it over at that time, they might have been able to exchange it for an ordinary residence in the north or south of the city. What the couple did was absolutely stupid, but Mr. Zhang had no obligation to remind them. Arbor walked down from the carriage, and immediately countless gazes gathered on her. The child wore a moon-white shirt, and his stoic face was expressionless. Although she didn't have any accessories on her body, she still gave people an indescribable feeling of nobility. Yo, Xiao Hu, you've come to trigger your meridians again. As expected, you come every year without fail. Unfortunately, it's not of much use. My mother said that you're a good-for-nothing and that you'll never become a mystic cultivator in this lifetime. A child's voice rudely entered Arbor's ears, causing her to involuntarily knit her brows. Arbor's cold gaze shot over and saw that it was an 8 or 9-year-old child. He wore a white robe in the style of the Daybreak sect, and the unique circular emblem of the Daybreak sect was embroidered on his chest. Who are you? Arbor felt that the little boy in front of him was somewhat familiar. Younger sister, He's second aunt's son, Xiao Kong. Second aunt. Arbor's, I don't know, expression made Xiao Tsong's heart burn with anger. Are you an idiot? Xiao Tsong pointed at Arbor and cursed, you don't even recognize your second aunt, my mother. Chapter 166. Arbor's eyes chilled to the extreme. Without another word, she stepped forward and kicked Xiao Tsong in the stomach. Xiao Tsong's eyes widened as he was sent flying by the little girl's kick. He crashed into the back of the crowd, eliciting screams in a small area. Duan Yu followed behind her, but he simply couldn't stop her. He angrily flung his sleeves. Why did Daybreak sect only accept idiots with bad brains? Why did they provoke the little girl when they didn't have the ability? If this wasn't seeking death, then what was? Wah! Xiao Tsong, who was sent flying, felt a terrible pain in his stomach, and he opened his mouth wide to cry. Son! A middle-aged woman darted out of the crowd and rushed toward Xiao Kong. Arbor glanced at the woman and pondered for a moment before recalling this second aunt. Wasn't she Madame Neili, who once came to steal her supplies? So it was this outrageous second aunt. Xiao Yingchen followed behind Madame Neili and coyly jogged over. When she looked up and saw Arbor, her eyes widened. Mom, it's her. That little bitch who stole our clothes and jewelry is here. Hurry and teach her a lesson. You scoundrel. Madame Neili turned to point at Arbor and angrily rebuked, You still dare to appear in front of us? Where's your mom? Tell Wei Ziqin to come out. I want to have a good talk with her. Do you know how to teach your daughter? What kind of thing have you raised? Stealing things and hitting her older brother without any etiquette or rules. Truly a little bastard. With a dark expression, Arbor took out an identity tablet with a flip of his hand and flashed it at the dumbfounded guards of the city lord's estate. Capture her. The words, superior, were carved on the back of the tablet. This was a pampered guest from the city center. The guards' expressions turned solemn, and they immediately rushed toward the jabbering Madame Neili. They grabbed her arms behind her back and shoved her in front of Arbor. Slap her until I'm satisfied, Arbor coldly ordered, his soft childish voice devoid of any emotion. A guard slapped Madame Neili's face. Slap. For a moment, the square was silent. Even the three mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association who were sitting in front of the long table and giving guidance tests to the children in line stood up and looked at the commotion with confusion. Paw! Slap! She slapped Madame Li's face repeatedly. Madame Li's hands were clamped behind her back. At first, she could still struggle and curse at Arbor. After a dozen or so slaps, his cheeks began to feel numb, and he couldn't even open his mouth. Xiao Tsong was furious. A layer of mystic energy covered his fist as he angrily flew towards Arbor and swung his fist at her face. Slut! Go to hell. You overestimate yourself. Xiao Mu gripped his fist with a backhand. Xiao Tsong widened his eyes in shock. He knew very well how fast he had rushed over, but that little girl, who was 2 years younger than him, had actually grabbed his fist in an instant. What's so great about being a mystic? Could a mystic cultivator disregard other people's life and death? A level 1 mystic cultivator's eyes were as high as the sky. You're a good-for-nothing through and through. The little girl's voice was monotonous, but everyone present could hear the chill in her voice. Crack. Ah. The pain from his wrist being broken made Xiao Tsong, this child, unable to resist opening his mouth and howling. Do mystic cultivators also know how to cry? The little girl's lips curled up mockingly. When she said this, she gave people a feeling of endless coldness. Chapter 167. Then cry even louder. Arbor flung Xiao Tsong away. The latter rolled to Xiao Yingchuan's side with a loud crash. It startled Xiao Yingchen so much that she jumped to the side like a grasshopper and let out a piercing shriek. Shut up, Arbor reprimanded rudely. Xiao Yingchuan's eyes widened in horror and she instantly restrained her voice. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and she reflexively covered her mouth. Why did she feel that this child was so scary? Stop, Xiao Mu said faintly and walked to Madame Neili with small steps. Xiao Mu raised her head slightly and looked at her swollen cheeks and mouth with a cold glint in her eyes. Your son wants to kill me. He should be dead already. What do you want to do? Lee Madam's mouth hurt, and she couldn't even speak clearly. She felt a chill run down her spine, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. She suddenly felt a bit of regret. Why did she provoke this child? Back in Kwoto village, she clearly knew that although this child was young, he wasn't to be trifled with. I'll spare his life for father's sake. Arbor coldly glanced at Lee Madam. Just this once. I won't. Before he could finish speaking, Chao Tsung suddenly let out an agitated cry. Master, master, master. Chao Tsung suddenly pounced on a figure walking quickly toward them and bawled loudly. He pointed at Arbor with resentment and anger. She wants to kill me. This little bitch wants to kill me. Master. Master, save me. Don't panic, disciple. The newcomer was middle-aged and wore Daybreak Sect's uniform. He looked toward Arbor with a shrewd gaze. You're so daring, child. What's your background? Tell me your name. Arbor raised a brow and sneered rudely. I hit the young one, and the old one jumps out to shout. You're really shameless. You little rascal, speaking so rudely. You really need someone to teach you a lesson, the middle-aged man said angrily with a dark expression. You want to teach me a lesson? Arbor expressionlessly swept a glance over his square face. His voice rose slightly with a hint of viciousness. You. Uncle Master Bai. You aren't her match, hurry and retreat. Duan Yu really wanted to kill these worrisome disciples. Did they think that he still had enough profound stones to pay those expensive ransoms when they were rushing to die in front of the little girl? Duan Yu, you are the disciple of our Daybreak sect master, the #1 person in the sect's younger generation. How can you stand by and do nothing when you see your little junior brother being humiliated? Uncle Master Bai turned his head and angrily rebuked Duan Yu with an "I'm very disappointed" expression. No, Uncle Master Bai, this matter. Don't talk too much. Little girl, let me have a taste of your strength. You have to know that there's always someone better than you. You'll suffer losses in the future if you don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Boom! Arbor landed a flying kick in front of Uncle Master Bai. Immediately, he stomped a pit on the ground, and cracks began to appear from the middle, spreading outwards like a spider web. Uncle Master Bai's pupils contracted. The strength of this kick was beyond his expectations. At the same time, it was also beyond everyone's expectations. It was the layman who watched the show, while the expert watched the knack. The three mentors from the Mystic Cultivator Association all sucked in a cold breath as they watched the rapidly moving little person in the field with bright eyes. After Arbor's flying kick, he didn't give Uncle Master Bai a chance to react. He had already leaped up and swiftly arrived in front of him. Chapter 168. Uncle Master Bai had yet to recover from his shock. Arbor's fist, which was covered in dense mystic energy, arrived in front of him with a whoosh. Bam! All of a sudden, Uncle Master Bai felt a sharp pain on the left side of his face. He could even hear a cracking sound coming from his cheekbone. Uncle Master Bai was struck by an old fist and was forced to take a few steps back. He bared his teeth and howled in pain. There were many gasps in the square, mixed with a few cries of surprise. Heavens! This child's seemingly delicate and light punch actually forced an Uncle Master from Daybreak Sect to retreat so many steps. The sharp-eyed spectators clearly saw Uncle Master Bai's left cheek swelling at a visible speed, turning into a big red bun. It was evident how powerful that punch was. Master! Chao Tsung watched in shock as his master was defeated in disbelief. In his opinion, Master simply did not need to lift half a finger to easily crush a small bug like Chao Mu to death. However, the reality was so disappointing. Not to mention Chao Tsung, even Uncle Master by himself found it unbelievable. He could only say sheepishly, "Damn girl, I was too careless just now, so you succeeded. Don't be too pleased with yourself." Before he could finish speaking, he heard high-pitched screams from the crowd behind him. What was going on? Uncle Masterby turned around and saw a small figure leaping high into the air. She was holding a pitch-black ferrule, which glowed with an inky light under the morning light. It was instantly eye-catching. The little girl was clearly in front of him just now, so when did she move behind him? Wasn't this speed a little too slap? The ferrule fell and ruthlessly smacked Uncle Masterby's head. Duanyu, who was standing on the side with his hands clasped together, silently twitched his mouth. Uncle Masterby only felt a line of blood slide down his forehead. He dazedly reached out to touch it and found that it was sticky. Sure enough, blood was gushing out. His expression instantly turned sinister, and he angrily roared at Arbor, "Damn girl, you're courting death." How could he still maintain that old face of his? How could Uncle Masterby embarrass himself in front of so many commoners and people from the Mystic Cultivator Association? Immediately, he pressed his palms together and poured all of his profound energy into his palms. His eyes were filled with anger as he charged towards Arbor. Arbor did not dodge. When he saw Uncle Masterby charging towards him with all his might, his eyes lit up. With a stomp on the ground, the little fellow's tiny body shot towards Uncle Masterby like an arrow released from a bow. "Is this what you want?" Instead of dodging, he faced the attack head-on. Everyone present held their breaths and stared at the two of them without blinking. Closer, closer, the distance was getting closer and closer. Uncle Masterby suddenly felt immense pressure. He slowed down his pace. On the other hand, the little girl did not hesitate at all. Like a waterfall, she charged straight towards Uncle Masterby. Xiao Tsong clenched his fists nervously, not realizing that his palms were covered in cold sweat. Whoosh! Uncle Masterby bellowed. A thick mystic light exploded from his palms and surged toward the little girl. In the blink of an eye, the little girl's entire body was covered in dense mystic energy. It was as if she was immersed in the mystic light as she charged straight into Uncle Masterby's mystic light. An earth-shattering boom erupted, shocking everyone in the plaza and causing them to retreat like a receding tide. I'll send the 2 chapters at 7:30 p.m. in advance today. Because the author is going to chop off his hands tonight, mwahaha. Chapter 169. When the two collided, Uncle Masterby felt a weight on his chest. He screamed in panic and was sent flying backward involuntarily. After the mystic light dissipated, the little girl stood there by herself. She apathetically dispersed the mystic energy covering her body and expressionlessly looked at a shallow human-shaped pit not far away. Uncle Masterby was flung half a meter away by the collision of mystic energy. He was flung face down and sprawled in the shallow pit. Uncle Masterby didn't know if it was because he didn't have the face or the strength, but he couldn't sit up for a long time. Just like that, he sprawled on the plaza all by himself. The surrounding crowd of onlookers whispered to each other, causing him to lie in the pit with a flushed face. He had never been so humiliated like today. It was all that damn girl's fault. Ah! Uncle Masterby was so angry that he was about to die. Arbor raised her small hand and looked at the mystic energy covering it. Her mystic energy density was higher than normal people's and would greatly benefit her in battle. If she encountered an opponent of the same cultivation level as her, her mystic energy should be enough to crush the other party. Today's battle had given her a certain understanding of her own strength. Uncle Masterby was a level 6 mystic cultivator, so it seemed that with the density of her mystic energy, it shouldn't be much of a problem for her to challenge a level 6 mystic cultivator. However, there was still a certain degree of difficulty in killing an opponent of a higher cultivation level in one strike. She needed to rely on other methods. Therefore, Uncle Masterby, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead. In reality, his injuries weren't too serious, so why did he have to stay in the pit and not get up? Arbor pursed her lips. She turned around and grabbed Xiao Hu's small hand, walking toward the three mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association. When the three mentors saw Arbor walking over, their cheeks flushed with excitement. Heavens! She was so young, but her strength was so valiant that she could defeat a level 6 Mystic Cultivator in minutes. The Mystic Cultivator Association must do their best to win her over. They absolutely couldn't let go of such a genius. Suddenly, Uncle Masterby, who was sprawled on the ground, moved his fingers and flipped over. He looked at the back of the little girl who had humiliated him with a gloomy expression. Lying on the ground, he flicked something in the direction of Arbor. Bang! Before the item could even touch the corner of Arbor's clothes, it was swept away by a wave of energy. The pink sleeves rolled up, and the item that Uncle Masterby had flicked gently landed on the fair hand that had emerged from the sleeves. The woman's extremely languid voice floated up in the plaza. Why are the people of Daybreak sect becoming more and more incompetent? Throwing a level 5 profound energy bead at a little fellow's back, he's really shameless. Uncle Masterby propped himself up and stood up. His expression was extremely unpleasant. This mystic energy bead was a rare treasure in his possession. As the name implied, a level 5 profound energy bead was a bead condensed by a level 5 mystic cultivator. Once mystic energy was injected into it and flung out, it would instantly detonate the mystic energy inside. In Uncle Masterby's eyes, Xiao Mu, who had just dealt with his attack, was definitely an arrow at the end of its flight. It was impossible for her to dodge this level 5 profound energy bead's attack. However, his scheme was ruined by this damn woman before he could execute it. Uncle Masterby looked like he was about to vomit blood. Murong-sun, you really like to meddle in other people's business. TSK, the woman named Murong-sun floated to the ground and immediately crouched next to Arbor. She extended 2 fingers and pinched the little fellow's icy poker face without any explanation. Chapter 170. You're clearly so cute, so why do you have to be a little stoic? Smile. Her small face was so bouncy and comfortable to pinch. Murong-sun blinked at Arbor and suddenly guffawed. She hugged the child tightly and stood up, her fingers pinching the child's face non-stop. Until... slap! A crisp sound rang out. The child unceremoniously slapped away her claws. She expressionlessly glanced at her before her gaze landed on Murong-sun. Murong-sun was an extremely beautiful woman. Her facial features were quite gorgeous, and even though she wore light makeup, it still gave people a feeling of heavy ink and color. Also, cough cough. Arbor extended his small paws and pushed her body away in disdain. Why did he have to bury her small face in those magnificent breasts? She almost couldn't breathe. Ha! Murong-sun laughed heartily and patiently guided her. Little fellow, I think I like your looks very much and your aptitude is quite good. How about you join my holy water sect's first peak? Darling Xiao immediately shook her head so hard that her head was about to fall off. No, no, no. Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. Master's heart will ache. Darling Xiao, haha. The 3 mentors from the Mystic Cultivator Association hastily surrounded her. One of them impatiently snatched Darling Xiao from Murong-sun's hands and shouted, Mentor Murong, you're wrong. You're a mentor representing the Mystic Cultivator Association today, so how can you privately accept students? If you want to accept students, you have to accept them for our association. Murong-sun raised her fist and sent that mentor who spoke rudely, flying. They watched as that pitiful mentor was sent flying into the sky in an arc by Mentor Murong, whose violence was off the charts. The other two mentors, Arbor, Darling, don't be scared. Murong soon cheerfully patted the child's head. With Master here, those strange uncles can't get close to you. Be good. Master will protect you. Be good, my ass. Arbor bared his small, sharp teeth. He really wanted to bite her face. What kind of person was this? Why did she suddenly jump out and claim to be her master without any explanation? That how could she give people room to refuse? Wait a minute. She was here today. For her proper business. My brother is coming to test. Oh my God, can you let me finish my sentence? Darling Chow, who suddenly felt that Murong Sun was hugging her and turning her around, didn't feel too good. Here, this level 5 mystic energy bead. Murong Sun stuffed an object the size of a jade bead into the child's hand. I'll give it to you to play with. Arbor narrowed his eyes and sent a trace of Xian energy into it. He flicked the Xian energy bead from his fingertips and sent it flying towards the dumbfounded Uncle Master Bai. Everyone, get out of the way. Duan Yu's folding fan fell to the ground with a clatter, and he only cared about dodging to the side with a shriek. Everyone retreated in all directions like the tide, leaving an empty space in the middle. Only Uncle Master Bai stood there in a daze. Bang! The profound energy orb exploded on Uncle Master Bai's body. Following Murong Sun's wild laughter, her lithe figure abruptly rose into the air with Darling Chow in her arms. She narrowed her eyes and looked down at the chaos below her. That's right, that's right. You took your revenge on the spot. It's completely in line with Master's style. Ha 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 ha. Murong Sun guffawed non-stop. Darling Chow dumbly glanced at that fellow and lightly harumphed. In truth, she only wanted to test the power of this level 5 mystic energy bead. Chapter 171. This way, the effect looked pretty good. There was only a shallow human-shaped pit on the ground, but it was destroyed by the level 5 mystic energy bead's destructive explosion. Uncle Master Bai's entire body sank into the human-shaped pit, and even the hem of his clothes could not be seen. Xiao Mu patted Murong Sun, who refused to let go of her, and strongly requested to get down. Murong Sun pursed her lips and reluctantly let go of Xiao Mu. Xiao Mu immediately trotted to the side of the human-shaped pit and poked her head to take a look. Uncle Master Bai was struggling out of the pit with all his might, and his nose was covered in dust, causing him to cough violently. Xiao Mu made a prompt decision and pulled out a repetition talisman from her sleeve. She flicked it at Uncle Master Bai, and it abruptly split open. The repetition talisman was an interesting talisman. It was not set so strictly to be immune to opponents one level higher than the user. Unless the opponent was much, much stronger than the user. However, an unlucky person like Uncle Master Bai, whose cultivation was about the same as hers, could still be hit by it. Xiao Mu crouched beside the pit and watched Uncle Master Bai struggle to get up from the pit. He repeated the action of struggling to lift his head and spit out dust. Blah! Uncle Master Bai raised his afro head, and his face was smeared with soot. Blah! Why did he spit again? Blah! Something was wrong. After spitting out dust 3 times in a row, Uncle Master Bai belatedly realized that he seemed to be freaking repeating this action. His expression turned into horror, but unfortunately, his actions were still repeating the same action. How could this repetition setting be so perfect? She might not have caught Uncle Master Bai's action if she was a second slower or a second faster. Uncle Master Bai, what are you doing? Hurry up and crawl out. How could the Daybreak sect disciples know that Uncle Master Bai had already been hit? They all surrounded the pit and watched in astonishment as their Uncle Masterby struggled in the pit. What the heck? Although this pit was not shallow, it should not be enough to trap Uncle Masterby inside. Uncle Masterby raised his afro head, tears about to fall from his eyes. Did he not want to crawl out of the pit? He was powerless. These damn brats. Hurry up and dig him out of the pit. Ow, ow, ow. Uncle Masterby's hair, which had been perfectly fine, was now hanging limply on his head. His image had never been as ugly as it was today. The little fellow joined in the fun and watched for a while. Then, he got up and walked out with a serious face. He didn't show any emotions. Compared to the twisted expressions on everyone's faces, the little girl's face was too calm. Duan stole glances at the little fellow from time to time. Our dear Chiao Mu bounced to Chiao Hu's side and pulled his hand, walking to Murong Sun. Guide me. Little girl, do you want to join our Mystic Cultivator Association? The benefits are good, the treatment is good, and you can get a basic survival package every month. Whoosh. That member of the Mystic Cultivator Association who was licking his lips to seduce the girl had just finished speaking when Murong Sun flung him away, perfectly drawing a parabola in the air. Little fellow, don't listen to his nonsense. The treatment he received was simply not enough. Our Holy Water Sect's first peak will always welcome you with open doors. Guide big brother. Did you guys get the wrong person? I'm only a chaperone today. Okay. The last mentor from the Mystic Cultivator Association nodded vigorously. I'll take your brother's place. Bang! The bandit Murong Sun slashed the back of his neck, and that pitiful mentor collapsed with 2 streams of hot tears streaming down his face. President, this subordinate can't help you anymore. I'll do it. Murong Sun cheerfully reached out to take Chiao Hu. Chapter 172. Chiao Hu was a bit nervous and clenched his fists uneasily. Don't be nervous. Although Murong Sun looked unreliable, she was actually very experienced in guiding mentors. She had successfully guided more than 800 mystic cultivators, if not 1,000. Murong Sun sat there and put away a rare smile on her face, a bit of seriousness showing in her eyes. She gripped Chiao Hu's arm and a strand of mystic energy slowly seeped into Chiao Hu's wrist. Chiao Hu only felt a warm aura start circulating inside his body. It was very comfortable as it circled around him, and his nervousness slowly disappeared without a trace. He felt like he was soaking in a hot spring, and his warm body gradually relaxed. Chiao Hu opened his mouth slightly and closed his eyes with a silly smile. Chiao Tsong, who was standing at the edge of the pit, had his eyes fixed on the pit. When he saw this, a mocking smile appeared on his face once again. Little trash, you still want to become a mystic cultivator? You won't be able to in this lifetime. Chiao Tsong held his simply bandaged arm and harumphed while enduring the pain. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat. After that, he left the edge of the pit. He didn't want to take another look at his master who had embarrassed him. How useless. He couldn't even handle a 7-year-old child. He had actually worshipped such a useless master, and even his own face had been lost along with it. In the end, Uncle Masterby was dragged out of the pit by 2 other Daybreak sect disciples. Why waste your energy and time on this little trash? Chiao Tsong crossed his arms and stood to the side. He did not dare to loudly rebuke in fear of being beaten up by Chiao Mu, so he only quietly grumbled. The mentor from the Mystic Cultivator Association, who was flung away by Murong Sun but ran back on his own, looked down at Chiao Tsong and frowned. He was so young, but his words were so harsh. It truly made people unable to have a good impression of him. Little brother, you're wrong to say that. The mentor looked up in Murong Sun's direction, faint admiration surfacing on her face. Although this Mentor Murong was unreliable most of the time. However, Mentor Murong is a very powerful mentor. As long as a child is guided by her, no one will fail to trigger their mystic meridians. Instructor Murong is a spirit channeling instructor who has a 100% success rate in opening his profound meridians. Xiao Zong's gaze froze as he secretly clenched his fists. No, that's impossible. In the entire Quoto village's Xiao clan, he was the only true genius who successfully triggered his mystic meridians at the age of 9. Afterward, he was chosen by Daybreak Sect and was directly taken away to become Daybreak Sect's disciple, bringing honor and glory to his family. That Xiao who, for 3 years in a row, had entered the city every year to find a guide to trigger his meridians, but not once had he succeeded. He was the joke of old Xiao's family. He was a good-for-nothing. Xiao whose hands suddenly emitted a faint luster, and the dignified child suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with great surprise. It's a success. The other onlookers in the square all looked envious. Heavens, a 10-year-old mystic cultivator was born in front of them again. I really want my children to do the same. The parents in the square all lowered their heads and looked at their children with hope. After 3 years of failure, the 10-year-old Xiao who finally succeeded in triggering his mystic meridians and officially stepped onto the path of a mystic cultivator. Thank you, Mentor Murong. Xiao who turned around and respectfully bowed to Murong Sun with a humble smile on his face. Chapter 173. Murong Sun's lips turned up in a faint smile. Child, your mystic meridians are very good. You have a bright future. If it weren't for the fact that my sect doesn't accept male disciples, I really would have taken you in. He was praised by Mentor Murong. A bashful smile appeared on Xiao Hu's face, and he respectfully bowed to Murong Sun again. Thank you for your help, Mentor Murong. Murong Sun waved her hand. As the mentor of the Mystic Cultivator Association, helping young boys and girls become mystic cultivators is my duty. Mentor, please help our child trigger her mystic meridians. Mentor, please help my child. The crowd that surged forward with a whoosh nearly drowned Murong Sun in the sea of people. Xiao Mu blended into the crowd and pattered towards several parents who were watching. She covered her mouth with her hand and secretly said to them, "Why aren't you going? That Mentor Murong in front is a mentor who can help the child trigger her mystic meridians with a 100% success rate. I only told you guys. Heavens. Big girl, let's go find Mentor Murong quickly." Around Murong Sun, the crowd was currently gathering at a terrifying speed, trapping her within. Hey, child. A certain mentor, who was drowned in the sea of people, was exasperated as she watched the little girl run further and further away from her with small steps. The child even expressionlessly waved her hand at her through the crowd and made a farewell gesture. Murong Sun snorted with laughter, and her enchanting eyes curved up slightly. What an interesting child. Did you think you could run away? Since Master has taken a fancy to you, you're masters for the rest of your life. Sister, I really succeeded. I became a mystic cultivator. Xiao who only regained his wits after running a short distance behind Arbor and exclaimed excitedly. Even now, it still felt like a dream. He really didn't expect that he would be able to step into the ranks of mystic cultivators one day. The disappointment every year already made him a bit afraid to try again. It could be seen that failure was not scary. The scariest thing was being timid and not daring to accept failure again and again. Arbor put his hands behind his back and suddenly turned around. At that moment, Xiao Hu caught a glimpse of a smile on his sister's frosty face. His sister's eyes were really beautiful. When she smiled, it was as if the stars were blooming in front of her eyes, the trees were blooming, and the spring breeze was caressing her face. It was incredibly warm. It was no longer that stoic face, no longer expressionless. His sister was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life. "Brother, you're the best." Arbor stretched out a small fist and gently punched Xiao Hu's shoulder. He raised his hand and pointed in the direction of Pear Blossom Alley. "Let's go home." Xiao Hu nodded vigorously. "Let's go home, little sister." Hand in hand, the two siblings ran toward Pear Blossom Alley. They completely forgot about Xiao Tsong, who was clenching his fists and pulling a long face. They didn't even look at him. The little girls smiled at the student-looking idiot. The folding fan in Duan Yu's hand uncontrollably fell to the ground again, and his eyes were engraved with that blossoming smile. It turned out that she could also smile so warmly, beautifully, and vividly. However, you habitually wrap yourself in layer after layer of icy spikes and don't allow others to approach you or come out by yourself. Once you get close, perhaps you'll be pierced to pieces and drenched in blood. What kind of you is the real you? Duan Yu couldn't help but feel melancholy. Chapter 174. Father, Father. Xiao Hu shouted loudly as he ran through the door with a face full of joy. Arbor's lips curled up slightly as he watched the young boy excitedly rush through the door. The fragrance of flowers wafted through the courtyard. Mother sat in front of the stone table with little sister in her arms. She turned around and revealed a joyful smile at the two siblings. Father and second uncle put down the teacups in their hands and stood up to look at them. This life thought it was completely different from before. She returned from hell and stepped on corpses and blood all over the place. All she asked for was a peaceful life and the well-being of her family. Ha 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 ha. My son has become a mystic cultivator. Second uncle laughed heartily. Little fellow, you're amazing. Xiao Zhongbang rubbed Xiao Hu's little head with a smile. You're a good child. Don't slack off in the future and work hard. Our Xiao family's hopes are all placed on children of your generation. Mother happily put down Xiao Lin in her hands. Second brother, I'm so happy today. Sit and chat for a while, I'll go take a look in the kitchen. Let's add more dishes tonight and have a lively meal with the whole family. Sister, celebrate. Good peaches. Shaolin bounced to her side and tugged at the corner of her skirt. Arbor couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his head and rubbed her little head before picking her up. There aren't any peaches, but there are other good ones. Do you want them? Dividing line, foodie's dividing line. City Lord's Estate main hall. Gu Qingfeng raised the wine cup in his hand and smiled at everyone. Today, the Mystic Cultivator Association and the three sects are gathered here. This city lord will first toast everyone. At this special time, the wine and dishes are meager, please forgive me for not entertaining everyone. City Lord is too courteous. A middle-aged man sitting in the Heavenly Dao sect seat raised his wine cup and nodded lightly at Gu Qingfeng. Now that zombified monsters have appeared everywhere, the citizens of every town are having a hard time. We have dishes, meat, and wine, and this is already an extremely luxurious enjoyment, a guide from the Mystic Cultivator Association said with a sigh. City Lord Gu Qingfeng nodded and raised his cup again. Thank you, guides, for helping the children in the city awaken their mystic meridians. He especially wanted to thank Peak Master Murong. He successively helped for youths successfully trigger their profound meridians. If it weren't for the fact that it was impossible for Murong Sun to have more than 4 people trigger their meridians at once, she really wanted her to help all the children under 15 in the city trigger their meridians. Mentor Murong is truly someone we admire. The 3 mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association also cast respectful gazes at Murong Sun. Murong Sun could only help 4 students awaken their mystic meridians at most. Afterwards, she could not help the children for at least 15 days. But even so, this kind of mystic awakening success rate and this kind of terrifying speed at creating mystic cultivators were very admirable. Murong Sun swirled the wine cup in her hand and smiled at the city lord. The city lord is very grateful to me. Of course. Gu Qingfeng nodded respectfully at Murong Sun. Peak Master Murong is an out-and-out mentor. Who wouldn't revere and be grateful to you? If that's the case, help me find someone. Murong Sun casually tossed a rolled-up portrait to Gu Qingfeng. The person in the portrait is my disciple. Don't be fooled by her stoic face, icy and unapproachable. However, her natural disposition is very mischievous. If I wasn't paying attention, she would run off without a trace. I'll have to trouble the city lord to help me find her. Everyone. Chapter 175. Gu Qingfeng was startled when he opened the painting and looked up at Murong Sun. Murong Sun was leaning seductively against the round-backed chair with her slender legs crossed. She raised her wrist at the stunned Gu Qingfeng and raised her lips to toast him from afar. Her misty eyes seemed to have the effect of starlight. It wasn't the wine that intoxicated her, but herself. Murong Sun, you evildoer. Your appearance makes it hard for all the men present to look away. A disciple that Peak Master Murong values so highly must be extraordinary. How about you let us take a look? The middle-aged man from Heavenly Tao sect asked with a smile. Gu Qingfeng asked Murong Sun for her opinion. After seeing her nod, he had his subordinate present the painting to Heavenly Tao sect. Murong Sun absent-mindedly sipped her wine and said aloofly, my disciple is a natural beauty with an exceptional constitution, so there's no harm in letting you see her. Heavenly Tao sect's Guan Yongnian was startled when he opened the painting. Murong Sun raised her brows, an interesting smile on her lips. Could it be that Hall Master Guan also knows my disciple? Guan Yongnian closed the painting and nodded. My disciple brought a portrait the day before yesterday and said that she found a 7-year-old mystic cultivator in a small place like Quoto village. Our Heavenly Tao sect is also very interested in recruiting this kind of talent. Unfortunately, the zombie transformation happened too suddenly and everything happened too abruptly, so before we could find that child. A 7-year-old mystic cultivator? A dark-skinned woman from Daybreak sect with a rigid face narrowed her eyes and left her seat to walk to Hall Master Guan's side. She picked up the portrait in front of Hall Master Guan and glanced at it. She snorted and said, it really is her. A 7-year-old mystic cultivator was rare these days. No, it should be said that it was extremely rare. In theory, every child could activate their mystic meridians when they turned 7, but there were only a few who could successfully activate their mystic meridians. When Lu Yumei heard that Murong Sun's disciple was a 7-year-old mystic cultivator, she felt a bit disgusted. It was indeed the stoic child that her disciple spoke of. Murong Sun, how dare you? You wicked disciple is so young, but you're already so vicious, and heartless. Lu Yumei glared at Peak Master Murong. Do you know what she did? Not only did she injure my junior brother Bai, you even heavily injured several of my Daybreak sect's disciples. What is even more unforgivable is that you killed my disciple, Li Xiang. Murong Sun, what else do you have to say? The 3 sects were originally of the same breath and branch, each mind their own business. You connived with your disciple to do such an evil thing. Shouldn't you give our Daybreak sect an explanation? Gu Qingfeng's smile froze on his face. He only wanted to hold a small banquet to welcome the people from the 3 sects. Why are you arguing with each other again? Could he, the city lord, live a comfortable life? Murong Sun sipped the wine in her cup, and her slender eyes lifted slightly. Her breath reeked of alcohol, and she looked at Lu Yumei teasingly. Hall Master Lu, what kind of explanation do you want? Oh my god. Peak Master Murong, your current appearance is truly a living evildoer. Even Lu Yume, who was a woman, could not help but blush. She nearly forgot what she was questioning Murong Sun about. Murong Sun, as the peak master of the Holy Water sect, you should carry out the mission of the three sects being as one. Hand over your evil disciple. Let our Daybreak sect deal with her. Murong Sun's tipsy eyes were half-lidded, and a mesmerizing curve curved her eyes. Her thin lips parted in a teasing smile. Don't tell me that this peak master still hasn't found my little disciple. Even if I did find her. TSK, how could this peak master's beloved disciple be handed over to you to deal with? Chapter 176. Murong Sun. You. Lu Yome's darkened face turned green from anger, and she swept the wine cup in her hand away without any explanation. Murong Sun narrowed her half-drunk eyes and shook her finger at Lu Yume with a smile. You're angry out of humiliation, angry out of humiliation. Peak Master Murong. Gu Qingfeng jumped up from his stool and stretched out his hand, nervously looking at the wine cup flying toward Murong Sun. Murong Sun raised her cup with a smile and brushed her sleeves in a carefree manner. She clinked her cup against the wine cup flying toward her, and mystic energy seeped out of her fingertip as she lightly flicked it. That wine cup flew back at lightning speed and crashed toward Lu Yume, who had an extremely unsightly expression, with an extremely tyrannical force. Lu Yume took a deep breath and stretched out her hand to catch the wine cup. Suddenly, the entire wine cup shattered with a bang several inches away from her hand, turning into fine powder that instantly dissipated before her eyes. Everyone was flabbergasted. Lu Yome's eyes even bulged out. Her fingers were still holding the cup, and Lu Yome's mouth was slightly agape. She froze on the spot and did not know what to say. Just how strong was Murong Sun? Only then would he be able to control this surge of profound energy as he pleased, and manipulate it as he pleased. Murong Sun propped herself up on the table with one hand and crossed her legs. She raised the wine pot and drank a mouthful with a grin. She laughed loudly and said, "Hall Master Lu, it's impolite not to reciprocate. You should also receive a pot of mine." Her slender leg lightly lifted and kicked, and the wine pot shot toward Lu Yome's head at a terrifying speed. Peak Master Murong, my junior sister Lu has offended you. Please be magnanimous. A man sitting next to Lu Yume hastily jumped up and blocked in front of Lu Yume with a solemn expression. He circulated all the mystic energy in his body and barely caught the wine pot. His throat instantly tasted sweet, and he nearly could not hold back the mouthful of blood that was about to rush out. Senior brother. Lu Yume was startled and hastily reached out to support the man who stumbled back several steps. Murong Sun chuckled and put down her slender legs. She flicked her sleeves and stood up. Thank you for your hospitality today, City Lord. This peak master still has important matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Peak Master Murong, about the three sects disciples heading to Qinghe town for training. Guan Yongnian of the Heavenly Tao sect hastily stood up and asked. Murong Sun slowly turned her head to look at him. Of course it will be held as scheduled. But according to our investigations, Qinghe town has been completely occupied by zombified monsters. I'm afraid the disciples of the three sects won't be able to deal with them. How can one become a talent without training? Hall Master Guan, do you want to cultivate a little flower in a greenhouse, or do you want to polish an ancient sword? Murong Sun smiled faintly and walked outside with a flick of her sleeve. It's fine if your two sects disciples don't have the guts to go. My Holy Water sect will keep the appointment as scheduled and carry out this life and death experience. Murong Sun's figure disappeared into the distance, only leaving behind a faint voice that lingered in everyone's ears. Peak Master Murong's words are very reasonable. Although Qinghe town is fraught with danger, it can indeed temper the sect's disciples. Guan Yongnian of the Heavenly Tao sect nodded and said, since that's the case, my Heavenly Tao sect will also participate in this experience as scheduled. Hall Master. The person next to Guan Yongnian was startled and wanted to speak. However, Guan Yongnian waved his hand to stop him. However, there are many zombified monsters gathered in Qinghe town. I'm afraid the 21 disciples of the three sects won't be enough to deal with them. Therefore, I would like to request the City Lord to issue a mission order and gather all the mystic cultivators, body cultivators, and superhumans in the city to head to Qinghe town together. Gu Qingfeng lightly bumped his fist. This City Lord has the same intention. Chapter 177. The next day, the City Lord's estate issued a level 3 mission call. They were to gather all the mystic cultivators, body cultivators, and superhumans in the city to assist the disciples of the three sects in gathering food and supplies in Qinghe town. It was said that there was a large granary in Qinghe town with an abundance of food, enough to match 3 months of Shijiao City's food reserves. Qinghe town. Arbor vaguely remembered this place. On the second day after the zombie outbreak, all the residents in Qinghe town died, and it became the zombies' base of operations. She remembered that in her previous life, the three sects had gathered a group of people to head to Qinghe town to clear out the zombies and gather supplies. Unfortunately, all the disciples of the three sects died in that town, except for the Holy Water sect's people who managed to escape. As mystic cultivators, every time the City Lord's estate issued a special mission, the mission's contents would be directly transmitted to the mystic cultivators to show their importance. Arbor was no exception. She received the City Lord's estate summons early in the morning. She was flipping through the mission notice when Steward Chang Zai jogged inside and hastily bowed. "Miss, the City Lord is here." Arbor pressed down the notice and looked up at the steward. She nodded lightly. "Understood. Please ask City Lord Gu to wait for a moment. I'll be right there." Chang Zai humbly agreed, then hurriedly turned around and hurriedly ran to the front hall to receive the City Lord. Arbor tidied up her clothes before heading to the front hall. As soon as she entered the door, she saw a woman in a violet dress leaning against the side of the window. She slowly turned around, and she was extremely enchanting and charming. She tilted her head and smiled as she waved her hand at her. "Disciple, Master has come to disturb you." Murong Sun's smile seemed to have been frozen in time for an instant. Under the shroud of the morning sun, it emitted a faint glow. However, after so many years, she would still remember her master's devilish appearance at this moment, waving at her while leaning against the window. No matter how quickly time passed and the past was like mayflies, she would not forget a single thing that she should remember. It was all stored in the deepest recesses of her memory. At this moment, Xiaomu looked at this person in bewilderment and reflexively jumped back to avoid her slender fingers. "Why are you here?" Gu Qingfeng smiled bitterly. In reality, when he rushed out this morning and saw Murong Sun appearing behind him like a ghost, he also wanted to be like Xiaomu and ask Mentor Murong, "Why are you here?" "Disciple, you ruthlessly tricked Master yesterday, so Master naturally came early in the morning to have a good talk with you about life." Murong Sun reached out, intending to pinch the little fellow's cheeks. Arbor jumped back again and silently ignored the wry smile hanging on Murong Sun's lips. Gu Qingfeng coughed, trying to attract the attention of the master and disciple. The two of them turned their heads and glared at him at the same time, with a look that said, "What nonsense do you want to say? Hurry up and say it." Inexplicably, he felt that this pair of master and disciple even had the same actions and expressions. What was going on? Gu Qingfeng coughed dryly. Miss Chow, I wonder if you've received the mission summons from the City Lord's mansion. If Miss Chow completes this level 3 mission, then for the next year's residence rights will be. You want to talk about this? Arbor inched closer to the door. I know. You just need to notify me when the specific departure time is set. Even if the City Lord did not come today, she still decided to go to the Mission Distribution Center to sign up. Chapter 178. This was because she also wanted to go there and experience it. After all, ever since she was reborn, she hadn't officially experienced anything other than that accident at Hullen Mountain. She could only obtain more experience from actual combat and strengthen herself through continuous training. She never dared to slow down because she didn't have the right to do so. Moreover, she also wanted to take a look at how unconquerable Qinghe Town's zombie colony, which caused people to turn pale at the mere mention of it in her previous life, was. Do as you wish, City Lord. Arbor turned her head and slipped past Murong Sun's hand, practically dashing out the door. City Lord Gu looked up, and his lips involuntarily twitched. The child, who had always been calm and composed, actually looked like she was running away in a sorry state. Murong Sun burst out in laughter. She took a wrong step and floated into the air, following the child as she said, "Little thing, how about you make a bet with Master? If you can trap Master for 15 minutes today, you win, and Master won't cause trouble for you in the future." Having a spirit floating behind her the whole way was so beautiful that she couldn't bear to look back. Arbor dashed out of Pear Blossom Alley. When she turned a corner, she happened to bump into Duanyu, who was walking toward her with a grin. She extended her hand to greet him. Jojo, what a coincidence. Hello. The youth looked dumbfoundedly at Mentor Murong, who floated past him. Xiaomu felt like she might have used up all the strength she had in the first half of her life. She had already placed 3 speed talismans on herself to keep up with her running speed. Then she looked back. Holy shit, the spirit behind her was still following her with a grin. Her expression didn't change at all. Arbor dashed toward the east of the city. She felt like she had run thousands of miles for 4 hours, but she still couldn't shake off that fellow behind her. Little one, don't blame Master for not reminding you. The direction you're running in is getting closer to the water area. That area is especially spacious, so you can't escape. A certain master drifted with Xiao Mu the whole way. Her face wasn't red, and she wasn't out of breath. Oh, your sister. This body of water leads to the sea gazing. It can be considered a branch of the sea gazing. Don't be fooled by how calm the water is right now. At noon, the high tide is 10%, but the current is very turbulent. A wide body of water appeared in Arbor's eyes. At this moment, she also stopped running and turned to look at the spirit behind her. Why aren't you running anymore? Murong Sun stopped in midair and looked at Xiao Mu with a smile. You have to keep your word. Arbor suddenly said this to her before tossing out a section of the spirit binding rope from his pocket and swiftly wrapping it around Murong Sun's wrist. With a tug and a pull, the child directly dragged the floating Murong Sun over and pattered to a nearby tree. She tied Murong Sun to the tree several times and tightly tied her up. Murong Sun's eyebrows twitched, and she looked at her youngest disciple in exasperation. Disciple, you shouldn't do this. If you tie me up here, the tide will rise in less than a quarter of an hour. If a wave comes, I will drown. Thud, thud, thud. The little fellow let go and threw Murong Sun aside before madly sprinting away. As he ran, he thought, the spirit binding rope is very powerful, so it shouldn't be a problem to bind Murong Sun for a quarter of an hour. Several minutes later. Xiao Mu paused in her steps and glanced back in distress. Murong Sun said the tide was about to rise. She was so strong, so she shouldn't drown. However, the spirit binding rope always tied people up and couldn't be freed. Arbor hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to run back to take a look. However, when he reached that place, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He didn't see Murong-sun, but he saw Duan Yu's pig-like teammate standing in the water and anxiously calling out to him, "Jojo, Jojo." Arbor. Fuck me, you're tied up by the spirit binding rope again. Chapter 179. Arbor waded over and came to Duan Yu's side. Why were you tied up here? Where's Murong-sun? Arbor looked at Duan Yu in bewilderment. Her small hand touched the rope binding Duan Yu's wrists and gently pulled. It was quite funny. After Mentor Murong escaped from the spirit binding rope, she tied Duan Yu to a tree. This was truly heaven's will. It was Duan Yu's turn to be unlucky. Duan Yu, don't think I can't tell that you're gloating just because your face is stoic. After Arbor untied Duan Yu's spirit binding rope, he quickly pulled Xiao Mu and ran toward the shore. The water level rose very quickly. In just a few minutes, the water had nearly crossed Arbor's shoulders. However, due to the high terrain in the city, the water could not rush into the city no matter how high it rose. The two could only swim to the shore after less than a minute. What are you doing with Peak Master Murong? Duan Yu asked in bewilderment as he paddled. I already explained to her that we're not friends. She's crazy and insisted on keeping me here as a hostage. She said you would come back to save me. But when I was tied up in the water by her, you didn't even know I was here. That's right. If I knew you were here, I wouldn't have bothered to come back. Arbor's mouth twitched, and she kept paddling her small arms toward the shore. Why do you have so much to say? We should hurry to the shore. For some reason, she felt a chill on her back. That deranged mentor probably would not let them off so easily. Don't you think the sound of the water is getting louder? Duan Yu swam forward and kept looking back to pull Arbor. The little girl's arms and legs were small, so she definitely could not swim as fast as him. Arbor also heard the sound of splashing water. It seemed to be right next to their ears. The two of them turned their heads to take a look, and their faces were immediately filled with shock. Their eyes, one big and one small, almost popped out of their sockets. Fuck, the sudden wave behind them was too scary. It swept up about 4 to 5 meters high and splashed water everywhere. Shit, where did such a huge wave come from? Roar! Duan Yu only felt a huge wave rolling over him from behind. When it crashed down on his head, it freaking stunned him. With such a huge wave crashing down, Duan Yu was instantly swept into the water. Arbor's eyebrows twitched, and he stomped on Duan Yu's corpse that had been swept into the water by the waves. He swiftly paddled a few times and tried his best to struggle up into the air. The profound energy around his body floated and quickly spread out. Originally, he thought that once he circulated his profound energy, it would be an easy task to break free from the water. However, Arbor quickly discovered that his profound energy seemed to be suppressed. That was because there was an even higher level indescribable power that was suppressing her profound energy. Instructor Murong, you're here. Arbor said with certainty. Although Murong-sun appeared to have left after she returned, the current situation made her very certain that Murong-sun was definitely hiding in the shadows and heartlessly watching them make a fool of themselves. The water suddenly parted to the sides, creating a shallow path. Murong-sun came out from behind the huge wave and lightly tapped the water's surface with her toes. She walked on the water like it was flat ground and cheerfully arrived in front of them. However, Arbor's gaze was fixed on her left hand. There was a nimble current of water circling around the back of Instructor Murong's hand. It slithered and spun endlessly like a living being. Chapter 180. What is that? Xiao Mu's gaze was immediately attracted by the water flowing around Murong-sun's hand. This is a water spirit. Murong Sun waved her hand, and the giant wave behind her rose again. Duan Yu's head just happened to pop out of the water. However, the giant wave crashed down again and slapped him back into the water. Arbor thought she looked quite miserable. There are 5 spirits in this world, and this is only one of them. Murong Sun walked over on the water with a grin on her face. When your cultivation reaches a certain height, you can gradually sense a trace of the origin power in this world. At that time, I'll be able to comprehend this trace of origin energy. Of course, it's very difficult to comprehend the 5 spirits on our Seacombe planet. Moreover, it would be suppressed. It could even be said that it was basically impossible to comprehend the origin of the 5 spirits on this godforsaken Seacombe planet. However, the little fellow did not need to understand this clearly yet. Arbor was pensive. She looked into the distance, and her thoughts also drifted away. She remembered that person. He could control lightning and fire. That pair of dark green jade-like eyes flickered with a demonic light under the lightning and fire's illumination. So these were the 5 spirits, the origin power of this world. They could completely suppress mystic energy. The difference between him and her was like heaven and earth. What if they met again? Would she become someone else's pet again? Would she be raised and fed? What a terrifying fate. Arbor shuddered, feeling a chill in her heart. A warm, thin blanket wrapped around her small body. Murong Sun reached out and picked her up. Let's go home. Don't catch a cold. Arbor's icy hand pressed against Murong Sun's cheek, and she earnestly looked at her. Master, will I be as strong as you in the future? This child's eyes were as black as 2 flawless gems, extremely beautiful. Murong Sun was startled, and her heart almost melted with this soft call. She laughed loudly and carried Arbor away, leaving behind only a faint voice. My good disciple, with your aptitude, you'll definitely surpass Master in a few years. At that time, you must remember to protect Master. Duan Yu finally managed to climb ashore. Looking at the empty waters in front of him, he felt as if 10,000 curses were running through his heart. Have the 2 of you completely forgotten about me? Is it really okay for you guys to be like this? One day later. All the carriages heading to Qinghe town gathered at the plaza in the center of the town. The disciples of the 3 sects each took their own spot, 7 in a team. The mystic cultivators and body cultivators gathered by the city lord's estate were gathered together. The holy water sect side was the liveliest in the plaza. The 7 celestial maidens surrounded a little stoic and chattered incessantly, fighting for a hug. Little junior sister, I'm your second peak's senior sister Yugue. I am Li Ling from the 3rd summit. Junior sister, ignore them. The 2 of us are your true senior sisters. You don't have to care about the others. Jojo, let's form a team later, Bo. Before Duan Yu could approach the 7 celestial maidens' encirclement, he was suddenly forced back by 2 cold swords. Senior sisters of the Holy Water sect. I'm Duan Yu from the Daybreak sect. I'm friends with your little junior sister. We're together. Duan Yu pointed at himself and Arbor with a chuckle. Little junior sister, this is your friend. Yes, we're together. Duan Yu forced his way through the crowd and ran to Arbor's side in high spirits. Chapter 181. Why did you run over here? Arbor glanced at him. I came to join you guys. Duan Yu replied with a chuckle. You don't need to care about your second junior brother and the rest. Arbor pointedly lifted his chin in Daybreak Sect's direction. Shang Kun and the others were looking over with unsightly expressions. They're all adults and have the ability to move on their own. Why would they need me to lead them? Duan Yu waved his hand. Jojo, we've been through fire and water together. We're natural teammates. You're praising yourself. The holy water sect's 7 fairies harumphed. First Peak's eldest senior sister, Su Shanshan, rudely pulled Duan Yu aside and tossed him aside. Stay away from my little junior sister. Little junior sister, let's go over there. We'll pick some reliable teammates. This youth has a glib tongue and flirtatious eyes. He doesn't look like a good person. Come back. How do I look like a bad person to you? Young Master Situ of the Heavenly Tao sect. Whispers spread through the crowd. Young Master Situ is here. Young Master Situ is the son of the Heavenly Tao sect master. He's the undisputed number 1 among the Heavenly Tao sect's youths. Many disciples in the plaza looked ahead with reverence. Su Shanshan supported Arbor. When she saw the crowd ahead, she frowned and pulled Xiao Yiren to the side. The handsome youth who walked through the crowd was about 16 years old. His black robe accentuated his tall and slender figure. What a handsome youth with dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. However, Xiao Yiren's focus was a bit different. The first person she saw wasn't Situ Yi. Instead, it was Lu Yexin, who had once been beaten up by Xiao Yiren, who was jogging behind him. Xiao Yiren couldn't help but roll her eyes at Lu Yexin's infatuated trailing. Where did the passion she had when she saw the Crown Prince go? The Lu Yexin who sweetly called brother Crown Prince, didn't you change a bit too quickly? Why did you change men in just a few days? Love-struck fool. Xiao Yiren harumphed. The rich Crown Prince was so hot and handsome. He didn't need this love-struck fool to like him. You have no taste. Idiot. Humph. Jojo, do you also think that Situ Yi's dog-like appearance is very attractive? At some point in time, Duan Yu had wandered to the child's side and leaned over under Su Shanshan's stern gaze. He followed the child's gaze and looked in Situ Yi's direction. What Situ Yi? Xiao Mu didn't pay any attention to that young master from Tiandao's sect at all. Her gaze was cold as she stared at Lu Yexin. Even Lu Yexin, who had been infatuated the entire time, could not ignore her attentiveness. Why are you here? Lu Yexin pointed at Arbor, her infatuated look turning into a vicious one. Someone come quickly. Help this young miss get this little brat. Ouch! Before Lu Yexin could finish throwing a tantrum, the child pounced to her side like a ray of light and smashed her little fist into Lu Yexin's left eye. Everyone was dumbstruck. Situ Yi, who was extremely annoyed by Lu Yexin, had his eyes lit up. He silently moved to the side to make room for the child to play. He looked like an onlooker who didn't mind watching a show. The child's soft and fair hands threw out a heavy punch. After a few punches, Lu Yexin cried for her parents and repeatedly begged for mercy. Duan Yu couldn't help but cover his face. Were all children this savage these days? Everyone. Lu Yexin, how dare you bully my little junior sister? Su Shanshan, Li Ling, and the other 7 holy water sect disciples rushed over and angrily rebuked. Chapter 182. Everyone suddenly felt some sympathy for Lu Yexin. It was clearly Lu Yexin who was beaten black and blue, and it was also Lu Yexin who was crying out in pain. Why did the 7 fairies turn it into Lu Yexin bullying little junior sister? Senior sisters, let's talk things out, The oldest disciple of the Heavenly Tao sect rushed forward and hastily stopped the 7 fairies. What a joke. If these 7 young misses attacked, how could Lu Yexin survive? Senior sisters, and little junior sister, let go. The senior brother twitched his mouth and finally managed to make the child loosen her grip on Lu Yexin's collar. The senior brother of the Heavenly Tao sect smiled apologetically. The three sects are of the same breath and branch, and we're all senior and junior brothers and sisters. We need to cooperate more on this trip to Qinghe Town. We mustn't damage the harmony between us because of a misunderstanding. Senior brother Wang is right. Su Shanshan said coldly, however, if someone wants to step on the lion's head and bully my little junior sister. Su Shanshan's scabbard lightly swayed, revealing half of her sword. My sword will let her know how fragile life is. Everyone. Senior sister, Lu Yexin really wasn't bullying little junior sister. How blind are you? Moreover, who would dare to bully you? Aren't you afraid of being killed by Peak Master Murong? Everyone simultaneously shifted their gazes to little junior sister. Speaking of which, when did the Holy Water sect have a little junior sister? Senior brother Wang smiled and cupped his hands. That's right, that's right. The three sects advance and retreat hand in hand and encourage each other. The Holy Water sect's little junior sister is also our three sects' little junior sister. We can't wait to dote on such a little sister, so why would we bully her? Su Shanshan's expression finally eased. She nodded and walked to the side while holding Arbor's hand. Gu Qingfeng, whose heart was in his throat, breathed a sigh of relief. Why did the three sects always have to bicker with each other? It wasn't good for dogs to bite each other. Thankfully, this small disturbance was resolved, and City Lord Gu appeared with a smile. Everyone, the City Lord's estate has gathered 7 mystic cultivators, 15 body cultivators, and 18 superhumans to assist the three sects' disciples to head to Qinghe Town. It's up to you all to decide how to distribute the personnel. Those 7 mystic cultivators will be assigned 2 people to each team. The 15 body cultivators were assigned to teams of 5 people, the 18 superhumans were assigned to teams of 6 people, and the extra mystic cultivator was assigned to the senior sisters of the Holy Water sect. What do you all think? Senior brother Wang suggested. Sure. Duan Yu nodded. Su Shanshan also nodded slightly. Then the Holy Water sect will go and pick people first, Senior brother Wang said with a smile. Little junior sister, do you want to pick one? Su Shanshan stroked the child's head lovingly. The child looked up at her and nodded before bouncing over to the 7 mystic cultivators. He took out a talisman from his pocket and flicked it. Stop. Fix. Freeze. Everyone was speechless. Why did he feel so inexplicably funny? Just the 2 of them. The child reached out and took the hand of the 2 young men who were a little confused. Both of them had removed a talisman from their foreheads at the same time. The other 5 mystic cultivators stood motionlessly on the spot, probably feeling very aggrieved. The funniest thing was that one of the female mystic cultivators was flirtatiously flirting with her hair and winking. Then, she was frozen in place. Situ Yi, who was being winked at, felt all the hair on his body stand on end, and he took 2 steps back. Senior brother Wang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Little junior sister, you can still pick one more. No, Arbor muttered and pulled the 2 young mystic cultivators back to the team. Situ Yi, Duan Yu, and the others clearly heard the little fellow muttering, useless and wasting food. Chapter 183. These mystic cultivators? City Lord Gu walked up to the 5 mystic cultivators in astonishment and sized them up. Only then did everyone understand that the child wasn't fooling around just now. She really immobilized all 5 mystic cultivators on the spot. And the reason she could lead the 2 young mystic cultivators away was because they weren't immobilized by the talismans the child took out. According to the child's thoughts, these immobilized mystic cultivators weren't even as strong as her, so what use were they? Bringing them along would only get in her way and waste her food. Everyone silently turned to glance at the child. They wanted to ask where these talismans came from, but when faced with the child's expressionless stoic face, they didn't dare to ask anything in the end. Little junior sister. First peak second senior sister, Shueshao, excitedly grabbed her small hand and lightly squeezed it. Little junior sister, were those immobilization talismans you threw out just now? It wasn't like they hadn't seen immobilization talismans before, but seeing their little junior sister take out a handful from her pocket at once, this was a bit exaggerated. When did Guanlon City's talisman patrician family become so generous and willing to sell so many talismans on the market? There were too many fake talismans these days. Even if they were sold in a talisman shop, they might not be genuine. Thus, seeing their little junior sister take out a handful of talismans at once was truly a bit of an eyesore. Arbor nodded. He took out several talismans from his pocket and stuffed them into his second senior sister's hand. He patted her hand. They can't immobilize level 5 mystic cultivators and above. Body cultivators with cultivation similar to level 5 mystic cultivators probably can't immobilize them either. Because they were heading to Qinghe Town, Arbor had already used up the remaining 100 blank talismans in advance. The talismans he drew were all strength, speed, and support talismans. So interesting. I'll go try. Shueshao also had the temperament of a child. She took the immobilization talisman and ran toward the body cultivators. But this time, the body cultivators and superhumans were on guard. When they saw a girl running toward them with an excited expression, they hastily retreated and looked at her with vigilance. Shueshao gripped the talisman and curled her lips regretfully. It seemed like she couldn't experiment on these people. Looking at their guarded gazes, how hilarious. It was as if she wanted to skin them alive. Xiao, stop messing around. Su Shanshan glanced at her second junior sister helplessly. She held the child's hand and walked forward, picking out 11 people from body cultivators and superhumans. What surprised Arbor was that she actually saw Qiao Wenwan and Wei San Lang in the group of superhumans. Third junior Wei gave her a silly smile, but Qiao Wenwan glared at him as if she wanted to eat him alive. She walked towards Arbor. Su Shanshan frowned and reached out to block Qiao Wenwan. What are you doing? Qiao Wenwan angrily clenched her fists. She had already heard that Arbor had joined the 3 sects. How could the heavens be so blind? While she, Qiao Wenwan, was struggling bitterly in the slums in the western part of the city, fighting over half a rotten steamed bun until her face and ears turned red, that damn girl actually joined the 3 sects and even became the Holy Water sect's little junior sister. This time, if it wasn't for the abundant rewards provided by the mission, Qiao Wenwan wouldn't have risked her life. Senior brother Wang, we've chosen. Su Shanshan glared warningly at Qiao Wenwan and pulled her little junior sister back to her team. Daybreak Sect and Heavenly Dao Sect had also chosen. At this time, the 5 mystic cultivators who were immobilized in the center of the plaza could finally move. Chapter 184. The other 4 mystic cultivators were good-natured and did not say anything, but they awkwardly went to the other 2 groups. However, the female mystic cultivator who winked at Arbor angrily jumped up and dashed toward the Holy Water Sects group. She shouted at Arbor, "Little witch, come out." Senior brother Wang could not stop the female mystic cultivator and could only follow behind her with a bitter smile. "Who are you calling a little witch?" The 7 celestial maidens exploded and glared at the female mystic cultivator with arched brows. Arbor calmly walked out of the group and stopped in front of the female mystic cultivator. "Damn girl, apologize to me immediately. Otherwise, don't even think about going to Qinghe Town today." The female mystic cultivator blocked the group and acted like a rascal. She was not afraid of making a big deal out of it. She was a mystic cultivator. She had to be revered by others. When had she ever suffered such grievances? She was actually toyed with by a child. The other 4 mystic cultivators were even more embarrassed. They were immobilized by the immobilization talisman because their cultivation was not high enough. This caused the 4 originally arrogant mystic cultivators to put down their haughty attitudes and recognize their shortcomings. They originally did not want to make a big deal out of it and embarrass themselves even more, but this female mystic cultivator was unwilling to let them off. After this commotion, even the normal onlookers in the plaza knew that they mystic cultivators were not that powerful and that a single talisman could take care of them. Alright, don't say any more. One of the mystic cultivators couldn't help but frown. Little junior sister of the Holy Water sect didn't want to do anything to us. If she really wanted to immobilize us, we would have died countless times already. To put it bluntly, that child just had an eccentric temper, but her methods were quite superb. She only used the shortest amount of time to select the 2 strongest mystic cultivator companions among them and did not actually injure them. If it weren't for the female mystic cultivator causing a ruckus, many of the onlookers would not have known what happened when the child silently left after throwing the talisman. I'm seeking justice for us. You actually dare to curse me without distinguishing right from wrong. The female mystic cultivator was furious. Xiao Mu pattered over to the female mystic cultivator's side with small steps. Duan Yu's eyes kept twitching as he silently counted in his mind. 1, 2, 3. Sleep. Arbor casually threw a talisman over and used his profound energy to shake off the talisman. The female mystic cultivator fell to the ground with a thud, and the entire place was silent. Carry her away. The child nodded at City Lord Gu, whose mouth was twitching. Thank you, City Lord Gu. No, it's my pleasure. Gu Qingfeng felt that his forehead was full of sweat. This kid who threw talismans at the slightest disagreement, was he really not the reincarnation of a devil incarnate? Arbor ran back to the team and looked up at Su Shanshan. Senior sister, we can go now. Su Shanshan raised her hand and patted the child's head lovingly. She turned around and said to everyone, let's go. The 60 men mounted their horses in unison. The child also wanted to mount the horse valiantly, but when he lowered his head and looked at his short stature, he couldn't help but feel helpless. Jojo, let's ride together. Duan Yu, who was in high spirits, blinked his incomparably beautiful peach blossom eyes and chuckled softly. You don't need to trouble yourself. Su Shanshan scowled and placed Xiao Mu on the horse. Then she also mounted the horse and coldly glanced at the youth. Situ Yi nodded at Duan Yu and immediately spurred his horse to follow after them. The group galloped toward Qinghe town. The journey was not too far, and if there were no accidents, they could arrive in half a day with this speed. Chapter 185. Royal City's Eastern Palace, a small study in a side hall. The morning sun shone on the desk in front of the window. Prince Mo stood in the room in his usual blue robes. His black hair was neatly combed under his white jade crown. He flipped through a memorial in his hand for a while before tossing it to the ground. Shao 11Z silently crawled over and hugged the memorial to the throne. He placed it on the desk along with the other memorials that the prince had tossed away earlier. Idling around all day and not knowing the hardships of the people. Look at this Lu Renhu. He's worrying about this monarch. He's so audacious and ignorant. He repeatedly slandered the great king and wanted to take a consort for this monarch. Mo Lian picked up her brush and drew a large cross on Lu Renhu's memorial. Not approved. Hui Feng stood next to the crown prince like a pillar. His brows didn't move, but the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. There's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The officials who worry so much for this monarch all seconded Lu Renhu's proposal. He, very good. Mo Lien picked up his brush and crossed out several booklets in succession. Afterwards, he tossed the pile of items to the nearby supervisor eunuch who was drenched in cold sweat. What did you say just now? The crown prince turned around with a hint of sternness in his eyes as he looked at the guard standing by the door. The guard inexplicably felt a chill run down his spine. He hastily replied respectfully, "The North Battalion heading to Qinghe Town to exterminate zombies is currently trapped in the town and awaiting rescue." Perfect. Lu Renhu and the others have nothing to do. Let them follow the army to exterminate zombies in Qinghe Town. What? The steward eunuch standing to the side almost dropped the memorial he was holding. Oh, his jaw also almost dropped to the ground. Xiao 11Z picked up the memorial on the ground and jogged to the crown prince's side. He reminded in a low voice, "Your Highness, that Lu Renhu is the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights. He's a civilian." So what if he's a civilian? Zombies are wreaking havoc everywhere. He's a dignified man. Even women and children are fighting. Why can't he fight? Thus, less than an hour later, the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights, Lu Renhu, and the other 5 officials simultaneously received the crown prince's verbal order to supervise the 6 of them to follow the army to Qinghe Town to participate in the rescue work. It felt like the sky was about to fall. The Lu family cried and cried as they hugged Lord Lu's leg. Lord Lu wanted to cry more than anyone else. Ever since the great king threw down this decree and left for Mount Hong, Lord Lu felt that his whole person was not good. For some reason, her eyelids had been twitching for the past few days. Sure enough, today's omen was fulfilled. Official Lu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He hugged his wife and child, and the whole family hugged each other and cried. In the end, a few guards from the south camp felt that Official Lu was being too slow, so they forcefully pulled him away and carried him onto the horse. The guards obeyed the crown prince's orders and went to the residences of the officials one by one. No matter how much trouble they caused, they were all tied onto the horses one by one. After escorting the lords out of the capital, someone would return to the Eastern Palace to report. The crown prince was silent for a moment before saying, "We remember that Qinghe Town isn't far from Shizhou City. We want the current news from Shizhou City." Yes. Hui Feng accepted the order and quickly left. The crown prince was somewhat distracted. He sat by the desk and held his brush, not moving for a long time. After a long while, he finally asked, "Gong Chang'an. This old servant is here." The steward eunuch answered with cold sweat. He felt that the crown prince's voice was extremely cold, as if he was in a very bad mood. How many memorials did the great king leave behind? Chapter 186. Gong Chang'an silently wiped the sweat off his forehead with his sleeve and said with trepidation, Your Highness, you've been going through memorials for more than a dozen days these past 2 days. There's still about a dozen days left." The crown prince's expression instantly darkened, scaring Gong Chang'an into kneeling on the ground and not daring to utter another word. "The great king's days are truly smooth sailing," the crown prince muttered indifferently. Leaving him with a pile of work to deal with, he scrambled off to Mount Hong to enjoy his life. Gong Chang'an wiped his sweat and murmured, Your Highness, this old servant was about to report something. On the way to the temporary imperial palace on Mount Hong, the great king's party was ambushed by 2 zombies, and noble lady he fainted on the spot. Why were there only 2? Didn't he have the hidden pavilion send a few more over to add some excitement to the great king? He wasn't reliable at all. If the great king knew what this unfilial son was thinking, he might rush over and strangle him to death. Your Highness, Kiki wants to send more people to Mount Hong to protect the Great King. Gong Chang and asked cautiously. The Great King took away 3,000 royal guards, so the entire royal guard camp is now empty. The south camp is going to reinforce Qinghe town now, so this crown prince doesn't have any more men to mobilize. The crown prince looked up and coldly glanced at Gong Chang and. How about we form a unit camp for you and you lead them to rush over to rescue the emperor? Shao, 11Z hastily covered his mouth. No, your highness, your joke is too cold. Shao 11Z couldn't stand it. Gong Chang and silently shut his mouth. This old servant doesn't want to lead a bunch of weaklings from the eunuch camp to Mount Hong to their deaths. This old servant will take his leave. Gong Chang and exited the eastern palace and met Huifeng's eyes, feeling the urge to cry. Huifeng couldn't understand the meaning behind Gong Chang and's bitter expression, so he quickly entered and said with a serious expression, Your Highness, there's news from the Night Pavilion. Shizhou City issued a mission call and summoned many mystic cultivators and body cultivators to accompany the members of the three sects to Qinghe town for training. If the information is accurate, they have already left for that place this morning. Previously, North Camp's 500 people were all trapped in Qinghe town. However, aside from some mystic cultivators, the rest of the people from the three sects should be a combination of body cultivators and superhumans. Their combat strength is probably stronger than North Camp's. The Crown Prince's expression was calm as he listened to the news and nodded. Very good. As long as Shizhou City is fine and doesn't affect my little girl, it's fine. As for the rest, they could go wherever they wanted, whether it was the three sects or the city lord's summons. Since the three sects are involved in the matter of Qinghe town. The Crown Prince's handsome brows twitched slightly. He reached into his pocket and took out the communication jade talisman. He touched the jade talisman with his finger and saw lines of small words appear on it. Your Highness, this subordinate is currently secretly following the little miss to Qinghe town. The young miss had participated in the three sects training. There were a total of 60 people in the group, and they had now arrived at the entrance of the small town. I'm about to go in with Miss, so I don't have time to send another message. The Crown Prince abruptly stood up from the table. His gentle expression no longer existed. Instead, it was replaced by a grave and cold expression. He felt a little flustered, as if something bad was about to happen. Has little Seventh returned? Your Highness, Seventh Yen will most likely not return for another 2 days. Prepare the horse. The Crown Prince strode out the door. Huifeng hastily followed and dissuaded him, Your Highness, even if you ride at full speed and take a shortcut, it'll still take 4 to 5 days. It's better to have Seventh Yen hurry back. The Crown Prince's footsteps paused. Right. Hurry and send a message to little Seventh. Chapter 187. At 10 minutes past noon, Shizhou City Lord received news that soldiers were escorting 3 carriages full of supplies into the city. The overjoyed City Lord Gu hurriedly went out to welcome them and led a young guard captain back to the City Lord's estate. He served them tea and entertained them for a meal. Only in the end did he realize that they weren't delivering supplies to Shizhou City. The City Lord was embarrassed when he realized that he had misexpressed his feelings the entire way. Hidden Flower, who was disguised as He Tian's lackey, saw everything and inwardly laughed until his stomach hurt. If it weren't for the 3 tails following them relentlessly, Hidden Flower really wanted to take a look at the little girl that His Highness the Crown Prince was so worried about. As for now, he would just let those 3 flies fly around outside for a while. I heard that City Lord Gu sent people to Qinghe town. He Tian asked under Hidden Flower's gaze. City Lord Gu was still immersed in the faint sorrow of the Imperial Court not distributing supplies to Shizhou City. The Imperial Court's generous gift was for a little girl. While City Lord Gu was in a bad mood, a little stoic face inexplicably popped up in his mind. It couldn't be, right? City Lord Gu couldn't connect Miss Chiao and the Imperial Court together. Unexpectedly, City Lord Gu soon discovered that his guess was correct. They really did come for that little stoic girl. Could City Lord Gu help us invite the little girl to the City Lord's estate? Don't make a big fuss and just invite her secretly, He Tian said with a stern and squarish face. Sir Hidden Flower's intention was to let the little girl decide how to deal with those 3 tails after she arrived. If the little girl was too lazy to do anything, then it was completely fine for Sir to eliminate those 3 flies. Gu Qingfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Miss Chiao followed the 3 sects to Qinghe town early this morning. I'm afraid she won't be able to come over to receive supplies in the near future. He Tian's face instantly darkened. City Lord, you're going overboard. How could you let an underage little girl go to such a dangerous place? Gu Qingfeng's mouth was full of bitterness, but he could only smile apologetically. The little girl set off with her sect. With the senior sisters of the Holy Water sect looking after her, there shouldn't be any problems. Since it was the sect's decision, He Tian had nothing to say. If that's the case, then we'll have to leave these supplies in the City Lord's manor for a few more days, Hidden Flower said with a smile, but his sparse eyebrows were slightly furrowed. City Lord Gu was crying in his heart, but he couldn't show it on his face. He nodded happily and ordered the servants to prepare a room for He Tian and the others to rest. When he sent the 2 off, City Lord Gu couldn't help but cough and ask timidly, May I know when the Imperial Court will distribute supplies to Shizhou City? He Tian immediately put on an official face and said solemnly, Recently, zombies have been everywhere. In many towns and cities, the control is very chaotic, and there are starving people everywhere. The resources distributed by the Imperial Court still need to satisfy the needs of those especially poor places. In comparison, Shizhou City was very stable and prosperous. His Highness had also praised City Lord Gu for his good governance and benevolence. The Crown Prince and even the Great King are very pleased, and there is no need for the Imperial Court to send another Zhizhou to inspect. Gu Qingfeng was bursting with joy, and he was grinning from ear to ear. Your Highness is too kind. He was immediately swayed by He Tian's few words. He didn't even remember to ask for supplies and eagerly sent them to rest. Chapter 188. Arbor's group arrived at Qinghe town at noon. Everyone dismounted but did not rush inside. Instead, they gathered at the entrance and planned to eat some rations and rest before entering the town. The leaders of the 3 sects were Su Shanshan, Situ Yi, and Shang Kuan. Duan Yu insisted on staying in Qiao Mu's team no matter what. Even the 7 celestial maidens' cold gazes could not erase his determination to stay. Arbor did not mind. This youth's cultivation was definitely higher than hers, and he felt a bit mysterious. He looked like a weakling, but he was not. That the little fellow looked up at the sky. Although it was noon, the sky above Qinghe town was overcast as though it was concealing an aura of death. Everyone silently took out their rations to eat. When Qiao Mu saw that most of the mystic cultivators acted in unison and took out food from their inner worlds with a swipe of the air, she could only swallow her pride. A certain poor child could only resign himself to his fate and take out a piece of pastry from the bag at his waist. She had just taken a bite when she heard a loud exclamation. Aren't you a mystic cultivator? Lu Yexin seemed to have caught Qiao Mu's weakness and pointed at her with a malicious smile. Oh. I know. You're a mystic cultivator without an inner world. Ha ha ha, no inner world. No mystic conscious. Idiot. Trash mystic cultivator, ha 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 ha. Lu Yexin did not notice that Arbor, whom she rebuked, was expressionless and emotionless when she said this. The other 4 to 5 mystic cultivators in the 3 teams all glared at Lu Yexin with fury on their faces. Situ-yi and senior brother Wang were sitting not far from Lu Yexin, and they all glared at this brainless junior sister with a frown. While she was mocking others, did she forget that there were 2 mystic cultivators in their Heavenly Tao sect team who had not opened their inner worlds? One of them, senior brother Zhao, was already over 30 years old, and being unable to open his inner world was the pain of his life. Lu Yexin originally wanted to annoy Arbor, but she didn't expect to offend more than half of the mystic cultivators present with her words. Duan Yu looked up and looked at the child beside him with interest. Qiao Mu was not to be trifled with, so she would definitely rebuke her. However, ha 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 ha. Qiao Mu responded to Lu Yexin's ha 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 and let out a series of chuckles. On her palm-sized face, her eyebrows, eyes, and nose didn't move at all. If it wasn't for the sound coming from her mouth, no one would think that she was smiling. He looked like a little doll carved out of jade. After the child finished laughing, she lowered her head and continued to eat the pastries. She didn't have the slightest intention to talk to anyone. Everyone was speechless. Pfft, Duan Yu burst out in laughter. Sure enough, following a child was too interesting. Situ-yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the child. Little junior sister is still young. It's normal that she doesn't have an inner world. Junior martial sister Lu, I remember that you also just formed your mystic sense a month ago and successfully opened your inner world. You're 5 years older than junior sister. Hearing Situ-yi's words, Lu Yexin was so angry that she almost cried. However, no one was in the mood to comfort this willful junior sister Lu. Humph, Su Shanshan and the others snorted. Seeing that Lu Yexin had been rebuked by Situ-yi, they let her off. Senior brother Wang took out a map and said to everyone, please come over and take a look. The entire Qinghe town can be roughly divided into 3 areas. We don't know the exact location of the granary, so we need to split into 3 groups to explore it. Chapter 189. The residential area is concentrated on the east side of town, and there's also a school there. The west side is mostly concentrated with shops, while the north side seems to be a large farm that's connected to a field and a small stream. That's the situation. Everyone, decide how to distribute the search areas, Senior Brother Wang said. Su Shanshan nodded. Senior Brother Wang, how about you distribute the search areas? We don't have any objections. Senior Brother Shang, what do you think? Senior Brother Wang good-naturedly looked at Shang Kuan from the Daybreak sect. Shang Kuan shook his head aloofly. We'll follow Senior Brother Wang's arrangements. Senior Brother Wang nodded with a smile. Since no one has any objections, I'll distribute the search areas. Since no one has any objections, I'll distribute the search teams in these 3 areas. Senior sisters from the Holy Water sect will search the residential area and school in the east. The Daybreak sect will search the shops in the west. As for our Heavenly Tao sect, we'll search the farm in the north. Su Shanshan and Shang Kuan didn't have any objections. The north side was relatively large, so Senior Brother Wang's distribution was already considerate of them. We still don't know where that granary is. It could be divided into several warehouses, or it could even be empty. Therefore, it's best to be careful. Searching for supplies is secondary. The main thing is that so many of us came in, so I hope to see everyone leave safely. Senior brother is right. Situ-yi nodded and glanced warningly at Lu Yexin. Junior sister Lu, now isn't the time to mess around. I hope you can rein in your temper and obediently follow the team. Lu Yexin was gloomy, but she couldn't throw a tantrum, so she could only nod sullenly. 6 hours later, before nightfall, gather at the center of town regardless of whether you find the granary or not. Here. Senior brother Wang pointed heavily at a certain spot on the map. Gather at the central bridge. Okay. Everyone nodded in unison. Su Shanshan held the child's small hand and stood to the side. Pitch-black waves seemed to surge in the depths of her eyes. There was a suffocating sense of discomfort in this place. All right, let's set off. Senior brother Wang and Situi walked at the very front and led the group of 60 people into Qinghe town. San Lang, don't you feel that this place gives people goosebumps? Qiao Wenwan followed closely behind third junior Wei. She was starting to regret it. Wife, don't be afraid. I'm here. Third junior Wei felt a little guilty, but it wasn't as obvious as Qiao Wenjuan's. Fear was written all over Qiao Wenjuan's face. She cautiously looked back and forth at the empty town. She shouldn't have been greedy for that dozen caddies of rice and come to such a gloomy place. Qiao Wenwan followed closely behind third junior Wei, her heart on edge. She followed the group into the small town. When they arrived at the entrance, the group stopped. Let's disperse here. Remember to gather at the central bridge before dark. Don't get caught up in the fight. Senior brother Wang didn't finish his words. A piece of bloody flesh fell from the memorial arch above his head. Blood splashed onto the heads and faces of several people. Everyone's heart tightened. Only Qiao Wenwan opened her mouth and howled uncontrollably. But halfway through his howl, he was punched hard in the mouth. The force of the punch threw her to the ground with a bang. Everyone's vision blurred. A nimble and slender figure charged over like an angry lion cub and landed punch after punch on Qiao Wenjuan's mouth. Everyone's hearts couldn't help but tremble as they looked at the bloody teeth that had fallen to the ground. This little fellow was truly ruthless. Chapter 190. Third junior Wei was dazed from fright. When he finally regained his senses, he hastily rushed forward to stop the fight and said with a sullen face, "Jojo, stop fighting, stop fighting. You're almost beating your little aunt to death. Do you want to kill everyone?" Arbor's eyes were so dark that not a trace of light could be seen. Arbor flung Qiao Wenwan away and said coldly, "Scram back to Shijiu City. You don't need to go in. The team doesn't need trash like you who only knows how to scream when you encounter a little trouble to drag us down." Qiao Wenjuan's mouth was full of blood, and she spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with broken teeth. When she looked up, she glared at Arbor with a venomous gaze and let out a hoarse roar. She pounced forward, wanting to push Arbor to the ground. She wanted to strangle this child who embarrassed her in front of everyone. Unfortunately, before she could get close, Arbor raised his leg and kicked her away. She rolled on the ground and roared as she pounded the ground to vent her anger. "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Arbor stared coldly at the woman on the ground. At this moment, the child exuded a ruthless aura, and a faint white mist of mystic energy surrounded her raised hand. She would lose her life with just one blow. A normal person's life was so fragile. Even a superpowered person would be powerless in front of a mystic cultivator. Third junior Wei was so scared that he shrank to the side. How would he dare to go forward and say a word? Even Lu Yexin, who had been jumping up and down, did not dare to speak. She only kept sneaking glances at Arbor with a strange mood. She felt that she had always been bullied by the child. Today, she suddenly saw her bullying someone else, and so viciously at that. It felt a little strange. In comparison, it seemed that she was not so strict with herself before. At least, her teeth were still in her mouth. Lu Yexin subconsciously raised her hand to touch her mouth. "Little junior sister." Su Shanshan slowly walked to her side and gently held her hand. She bent down and picked up the child. "Let's go." Xiao Mu's accumulated cold energy slowly relaxed. She looked up at Su Shanshan and silently nodded with pursed lips. Killing an unimportant woman would be as easy as blowing off dust, but why should her junior martial sister bear the bad reputation of killing a relative? Leave immediately. Don't stay. Su Shanshan shouted at Xiao Wenwan with a cold face. She then turned to her team and said, "Everyone, listen to my orders. Don't make any noise. If you attract a large number of zombies to the team, you will bear the consequences. That's right. Calm down when something happens. Don't panic." Senior Brother Wang nodded in agreement. Even the people from Daybreak's sect who had always found Arbor an eyesore didn't say anything this time because they knew very well that if it weren't for Arbor stopping Qiao Wenjuan's shouting in time, perhaps many zombies would have been attracted by now. They didn't want to be surrounded by zombies while they were still at the town's entrance. Shang Kun said solemnly, "Everyone, be careful. We're heading west." After saying that, his sharp gaze swept over the timid third junior Wei. "She's your wife. Take her back to Shijiu City. Our team doesn't welcome you." Third junior Wei opened his mouth, wanting to defend himself, but Shang Kun had no intention of listening to him. He directly led the team to the west side of town. Qiao Wenwan was anxious, angry, and embarrassed. She kicked and slapped the ground, wanting to make a fuss again, but third junior Wei pounced over and covered her mouth. "Wife, be quiet." Chapter 191. Qiao Wenwan wanted to eat third junior Wei alive. When she was flung to the ground by Qiao Mu just now, she clearly saw that this cowardly man did not know how to stand up for her at all. Even when he saw that Qiao Mu was beating him viciously, he kept retreating backwards, deeply afraid of being implicated by her. "You!" Third junior Wei hurriedly covered Qiao Wenjuan's noisy mouth and dragged her out of the town. "Wife, keep your voice down. We shouldn't be fooling around right now. The whole group has left, and only the two of us are left. If something happens, we won't have anyone to reason with." "Reason my ass." Qiao Wenjuan's mouth was covered by third junior Wei again. Her mouth was filled with the taste of blood. "Wife, you're too impulsive. That's not good. Look at you, if you didn't make a fuss just now, they wouldn't have kicked us out of the group." Third junior Wei dragged Qiao Wenwan all the way to the town entrance. He was a strength-type superhuman, so Qiao Wenwan couldn't resist at all when he held her down. When the two of them reached the town entrance, Qiao Wenwan suddenly cried out and tried to pry the man's arm away. She stared in front of her with a frightened expression. A person with long hair that they couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman was sitting on a stone block at the town entrance with his back facing them. Two hands were slowly crawling on his head of messy hair. No matter how one looked at it, there was a sense of creepiness. Fortunately, it was still daytime. If it was nighttime, they would be scared sick by this person even if they weren't sick. The two of them gathered their courage and walked to the side, trying their best to avoid coming into contact with the person on the stone block. However, the person suddenly turned his head. A pair of eyes protruded from the deep eye sockets of his face. They were shockingly huge. The guy opened his mouth at the two of them, revealing two very sharp fangs. Without saying anything, he climbed down from the stone block and suddenly pounced at the two of them. Qiao Wenwan was so scared that she fell on her butt. Third junior Wei couldn't care less about Qiao Wenwan at this time. He quickly ran out of the town. The zombie pounced and clawed at Qiao Wenwan. The wound on her left arm was so deep that the bone could be seen. Qiao Wenjuan's eyes shrank in pain. "Third young Master Wei, you damned donkey." Qiao Wenwan cursed in shock and fear. Seeing that the terrifying zombie was about to pounce on her face again, Xiao Wenwan took a deep breath and suddenly burst forth with speed. With a whoosh, she swept past the zombie and rushed out of the town. Roar! When the zombie saw that the meat in its mouth had flown away, it hurriedly chased out of the town in a crooked manner and chased in the direction of the couple. Roar! Roar! Although Third Junior Wei's strength was different from a mortal's, his speed was no match for Qiao Wenjuan's. It didn't take long for Qiao Wenjuan to overtake him. Third Junior Wei looked back and saw the corpse puppet howling madly as it chased after him. He cursed anxiously and angrily, "Wenwan, why did you lure it out? You useless man who deserves 1,000 cuts." Qiao Wenwan roared angrily. Her speed exploded to the extreme as she rushed forward. She roared angrily, "Go to hell." Third Junior Wei's expression was extremely ugly. He still wanted to say something, but he suddenly realized that there was a gust of wind behind him. When he turned around, the zombie had clawed at his face. How could this be? Third Junior Wei's eyes widened in horror. The zombie's speed had always been very slow. Although he couldn't run as fast as Qiao Wenwan, he was at least much faster than a mortal. But now what kind of zombie was this? How could its speed be so shocking? Third Junior Wei couldn't think about it in detail. He punched the zombie's body and clearly heard a crack from the zombie's body. Third Junior Wei was delighted, but in the next second, his throat was bitten by a pair of terrifying fangs. Ah! Chapter 192. After the three teams split up at the memorial arch, they each went to their own area to search. They did not know that Qiao Wenwan and her husband met with misfortune. Of course, even if they knew, they would not pay too much attention. Su Shanshan walked at the front of the team while holding the child's hand. Xue Xiao followed closely behind her with a step's distance. Her playful smile disappeared, replaced by a grave expression. Gurgle. A young body cultivator in the team kicked something and stopped with a frown. Everyone gripped their weapons tightly and looked down, only to see a sinister head lying quietly at their feet. Everyone's breathing tightened, but their expressions were still relatively calm. Su Shanshan looked up at the undulating rows of residences. There are probably more than 100 residences here. We'll split into 3 teams to search. Xiao Xiao, you lead one team. Junior sister Yugue, you lead the other team. We'll split into 3 teams so we can search faster this way. If anything happens, remember to use the sect's communication talisman to contact us immediately. Yes. Yugue and Xue Xiao each picked 6 people and left quickly. Besides her and her little junior sister, there were 6 other people with Su Shanshan. There was Duanyu, who they could not shake off, junior sister Li Ling from the 3rd peak, a young mystic cultivator named Yang Shu, a middle-aged body cultivator named Ah Jin, and 2 superhumans, a pair of young siblings. The older brother, Xiong Yan, was 17 years old and a strength-type superhuman. The younger sister, Xiong Li, was 15 years old and a speed-type superhuman. After introductions, everyone learned that Xiong Li not only ran fast but also had developed hearing. Before Su Shanshan entered the residences to search, she had Xiong Li listen to the surroundings. After finding no problems, she quickly led everyone into the residences to search for supplies. The 8 people searched 5 to 6 residences but did not find anything. They could not help but look at each other with wry smiles. Continue searching. Su Shanshan ordered, and the 8 people walked out of the house and ran to the next one. The houses here weren't badly damaged, but along the way, they didn't even see a single corpse puppet. This worried Arbor deeply. A shadow floated in his heart and seemed to be spreading. After exiting the residences, Arbor looked up at the sky. It was even darker than before. Duan Yu poked the child's back. Jojo, did you discover something? It's too quiet here. The child's words made everyone's hearts tighten. Xiongli even consciously stopped in her tracks, once again holding her breath and listening attentively. However, I really didn't hear anything. The footsteps of a corpse puppet are very different from ours. As long as one appears near us, I will definitely hear it, Xiongli explained anxiously. Su Shanshan nodded. Everyone, be careful. Let's continue searching. Next room. Everyone couldn't help but quicken their pace. However, although the rooms were intact and undamaged, there was no food at all. Could there be a mistake in the information? The people of Qinghe town have already fled with their food, the young mystic cultivator, Yang Shu, asked with a frown. No, they didn't escape, the middle-aged body cultivator said with a pained expression. How did you know? My in-laws live in Qinghe town. After my wife brought the 2 children back to her parents' home, she hasn't returned since. The middle-aged body cultivator closed his eyes. He had been waiting for his relatives in Shizhou City, but they never came. Then. Are you familiar with the town? Chapter 193. The middle-aged body cultivator revealed a bitter smile. I went out to gain experience for several years and didn't return home often, much less have the time to visit my in-laws. Now that he thought about it, he was filled with regret. While he pursued strength everywhere and was busy making friends with all kinds of people, his wife took care of their elderly parents with their 2 children and never once complained to him. But now, it was so difficult for him to even see his wife and children again. The young mystic cultivator, Yang Shu, patted body cultivator Ajin's shoulder. He wanted to say a few words of consolation but was unable to say anything after a moment of hesitation. Everyone present was well aware of this. Ajin's wife and children were most likely doomed. Su Shanshan took a deep breath and said, "Let's finish searching this area. If we still don't find anything, I think we shouldn't enter these residences one by one. Let's circle to the back and see if there are granaries." Okay. They all nodded without any objections. Arbor gathered his sleeves and followed behind them. He slowly turned his head and glanced behind him. There seemed to be some kind of unease hidden under the peaceful residence district. The 8 of them entered a relatively large residence. This size was one of the best in the entire Qinghe town. Mystic cultivator Yang Shu was the first to kick open the 2 large doors. Everyone cautiously entered with weapons in hand. The courtyard was bleak and empty without a single person in sight. Other than Arbor standing alone in the courtyard, the other 7 did the same as before. They walked along the long corridor leading to the back rooms to search for supplies. Arbor circled the courtyard by himself and picked up any tools he saw that he could use. After returning to his original spot, Arbor took out a storage talisman from his sleeve and flicked it open, instantly storing everything inside. Su Shanshan, Duan Yu, and Yang Shu just happened to return to the courtyard. They immediately saw the child standing in the middle of the courtyard, gently gathering her sleeves and slightly raising her head. A talisman emitting a blue light was floating in front of her. Her small, fair hands poked out of her sleeves and swiped at the air. All the miscellaneous items on the ground disappeared in the blink of an eye. Everyone's hearts jolted, and Duan Yu even sprinted to the child's side. He grabbed the child's hand and exclaimed, "Storage talisman." The child calmly withdrew his hand and looked at the young man expressionlessly. "Young man, what are you so excited about?" "Wow, this kind of storage talisman is hard to buy even on the black market." Compared to her older brother's solemnness, Xiongli, this younger sister, was pretty and vivacious. She was not shy with strangers at all, and she ran up to Qiao Mu and held her small hand with a chuckle. "Little sister, you really have hidden your abilities well. Su Shanshan nodded her head in agreement. Earlier, when they were outside the town, the child had taken out the bag from her waist and taken out some food. She had even been mocked by that ignorant Lu Yexin. But could Lu Yexin have a storage talisman? Perhaps even her father, who was the vice hall master of Tiandao's sect, wouldn't be able to get a precious storage talisman from the black market. No wonder Master said to her aloofly before they left, "Your little junior sister doesn't need you people to worry about her. Compared to your little junior sister, Master is more worried about you all. Xiao Xiao's temper is especially irritable, so you have to watch her more. As for your little junior sister, you'll know in the future." Recalling her master's meaningful smile, Su Shanshan took a deep breath. Chapter 194. It's possible to buy immobilization talismans on the black market. But I've never seen a storage talisman before. Duan Yu's eyes were so bright they were about to burn. He tossed the child's disdain to the back of his mind. Duan Yu relentlessly grabbed the child's hand and chuckled as he questioned, "Little fellow, where did you buy these talismans? Could it be that some underground black market opened an auction and didn't inform him?" The child decisively slapped away Duan Yu's hand and silently put away the blue talisman before running towards Su Shanshan. "Duan Yu, my heart hurts. I have such a handsome face that angers the heavens, but why am I so unpopular with this child? Eldest senior sister, let's go." Arbor suddenly paused and pulled Su Shanshan over, a cold glint flashing through his narrowed eyes. The blue talisman jumped out again, and a pitch-black repeating crossbow instantly appeared in her hand. Whoosh! 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 3 iron arrows shot out like shooting stars. Hoarse screeches came from the sky, and 3 black lumps fell down. They were accompanied by pieces of rotten flesh that softly clattered to the ground. The 7 people instantly gathered around Arbor and looked up in shock. The originally pitch-black sky was now tainted by a large flock of pitch-black crows, turning it completely black. They were like a black iron plate hanging in the sky as they rapidly moved toward the residential area on the east side. Arbor's heart skipped a beat, and he clenched his fists tightly. 3rd-level mutated zombie crows. Why did these things appear in Qinghe Town? The mutation speed was so fast in this life. Mutated zombie crows appeared in less than half a month. What more terrifying things would happen in the future? Or could it be that these mutated zombie crows also appeared in her previous life, so almost all the people from the 3 sects were trapped in Qinghe Town and never returned? In reality, there was no time for her to think about it. Although these mutated zombie crows were not difficult to deal with, there were too many of them. Once they surrounded them, they would probably be wiped out. Moreover, she finally figured it out. Why was this place so quiet? It was likely that the corpses had been eaten by the crows before they mutated, which accelerated the mutation of the corpse crows. It made the entire Qinghe town look empty without a single zombie to be found. Junior sister Li Ling quickly released the sex message talisman and asked everyone to gather at the town's memorial archway, Su Shanshan said calmly. Li Ling immediately took out the sex message talisman from his inner world and hastily wrote 2 lines of words. Then, he threw it into the sky with a whoosh and watched as it turned into specks of stars and dissipated. It's too late, Grand Senior Sister. Arbor's black eyes narrowed. He quickly took out 7 or 8 talismans from his sleeves and threw them at everyone. Run! Arbor took the lead and ran towards the back of the residential area. At this moment, Su Shanshan also realized that it was unrealistic for everyone to run back to the entrance of the town. The sky in front of them was completely blocked by the mutated cadaver crows. They flapped their wings that were full of rotten flesh, and as they flapped, smelly lumps of flesh fell from above. The place where Arbor escaped to was an opening. Su Shanshan shouted, "Come over here. Follow little junior sister." Xiongli displayed her innate speed and grabbed her brother Xiong Yan, who was running at the very back. With a few jumps, she followed behind Arbor. Soon, the sound of flapping wings came from behind them. The mutated cadaveric crows had caught up. A 3-story residence appeared in front of them. The Qingfeng Academy plaque at the entrance was already broken and lying on the ground. Chapter 195. Everyone rushed into the classroom in 2s and 3s. Because of the speed talisman, everyone was able to display extraordinary speed. Eldest senior sister. Eldest senior sister, little junior sister. Several pleasantly surprised shouts came from the side entrance. Su Shanshan looked up and saw that Shui Zhao's and Yu Gui's teams had arrived. She was overjoyed and quickly waved at them. "Quick, let's go in first." The 3 teams converged, and everyone dashed into the academy. They quickly turned around and closed the wooden doors and windows in time. Immediately, they heard a series of flapping sounds as a dozen or so mutated cadaveric crows swooped down from the sky and slammed into the doors and windows. Everyone's hearts clenched tightly as they followed the swaying of the doors and windows. "Quick! Move those stools and tables over here." At Su Shanshan's command, many people immediately rushed over and dragged over all the tables and chairs in the academy. They stacked them one by one in front of the doors and windows. Through the crack in the window lattice, Arbor coldly looked at the dense flock of cadaveric crows in the sky and frowned. These senseless things were actually so well-mannered that they didn't immediately rush down to attack them. Other than the dozen that attacked earlier, the rest of the flock of cadaveric crows that blotted out the sky only circled the academy and did not move closer. This caused Arbor to feel very uneasy. She couldn't help but feel that she had overlooked something very important. Arbor and Duanyu, who was standing next to her, looked at each other and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. Thud. Thud, thud. Thud, thud, thud. In the quiet Clear Breeze Academy where only breathing could be heard, a soft sound suddenly came from the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. It sounded like someone was walking down from the 2nd floor. Everyone's nerves tensed up in an instant. Their faces darkened as they looked in the direction of the staircase. Even the sound of their breathing was held in unison. Thump, 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 thump. A bouncing bamboo ball fell down from the stairs, causing everyone's tense nerves to loosen slightly in an instant. They only felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their throats, but all of a sudden, they only saw an insignificant bamboo ball. "Be careful." Xiao Mu suddenly raised her crossbow and struck a zombie that was about to pounce onto her teammate, causing it to fall to the ground. Everyone looked up and sucked in a breath of cold air. There were several large holes in the wooden floor of the 2nd floor of the academy. 4 or 5 corpse puppets were jumping down from the holes. Some were hanging upside down from the ceiling, their protruding eyes full of hostility. One after another, people swallowed their saliva. They were so shocked that their breathing almost stopped. However, none of them were pushovers. At first, they just didn't react as fast as Arbor, but after they reacted, they didn't even need the captain's instructions. They consciously formed groups of 2 or 3 and rushed towards the zombies that were pouncing on them. They quickly took care of those things, including the ones that were hanging upside down from the ceiling. "Little sister, thank you for your reminder." The young mystic cultivator who had almost been pounced on by the zombie cast a grateful glance at Arbor. At that moment, everyone's attention was attracted by the bamboo ball that fell down the stairs. Only the child saw the danger above his head. It had to be said that his level of meticulousness was comparable to a mystic cultivator with decades of experience. Arbor pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She only nodded at the young mystic cultivator. Chapter 196. Su Shanshan looked up at the dilapidated ceiling above her head. Should we go up? Let's go up and take a look. They nodded hesitantly. When everyone walked up the stairs, only the middle-aged body cultivator, Ah Jin, stood there and stared motionlessly at the bamboo ball on the ground. This was the bamboo ball he personally made for the two children before he left home last time. Children. Ah Jin looked up at the broken ceiling with excitement in his eyes. Ah Jin, what are you doing? Su Shanshan turned around and looked at the middle-aged body cultivator with a frown. He still had time to daydream at a time like this. Did he have a death wish? Ah Jin returned to his senses and suddenly bent down to pick up the bamboo ball. He took the lead and dashed upstairs with loud footsteps. Ah Jin. The young mystic cultivator, Yang Shu, looked at the middle-aged body cultivator in astonishment. This Ah Jin didn't speak much the entire way up, but he was very cooperative with the team. He had never lost his composure like this and ran off alone without a word. Go up, Arbor ordered coldly. What happened to him? Shui Xiao turned to Su Shanshan and spoke quickly. Eldest senior sister, we wanted to rush to the town entrance after receiving your message, but it was too late. It's the same for us, and we sacrificed a teammate on the way here, Senior Sister Yugue said grimly. Senior Sister Yugue, this has nothing to do with you. It was that superhuman who disregarded your orders and ran away recklessly that killed him. Also, he almost implicated us. Yugue sighed. The more critical the situation, the more you have to remain calm. That body cultivator brother didn't listen to Senior Sister Su and ran up alone. I'm afraid. Su Shanshan also frowned, her expression unsightly. Let's go up. Pay attention to your feet and be careful. Don't push and shove in a panic. Then, Su Shanshan solemnly handed her little junior sister to Duan Yu and turned to Shui Xiao. Junior sister, let's lead the way. Yes. Shui Xiao nodded and walked up to stand next to Su Shanshan. The two of them led the team upstairs. The wooden floor was severely damaged, and from time to time, a slight cracking sound could be heard. Creak, creak. The sounds under their feet made everyone tense and inexplicably depressed. Suddenly, an old face appeared at the top of the stairs. Su Shanshan's reaction was extremely fast as a streak of profound energy rushed over. The profound energy landed on the handrail of the staircase, splitting a large piece of the wooden handrail in half, and it fell down the stairs with a crash. Su Shanshan and Shui Xiao were the first to quickly ascend the stairs. Xiong Yan and his sister followed closely behind them, while Duan Yu walked in the middle of the crowd with the child in tow. After the group of people had all gone upstairs, they very vigilantly spread out to both sides, paying attention to the dark environment around them. The floor was very dark, and there should be a lobby in the middle. The wooden doors of the 2 rows of rooms on both sides were tightly shut. The middle-aged body cultivator, Jin Jingheng, stood in front of Su Shanshan and Shui Xiao and said anxiously, Don't do anything, everyone. They're all residents of Qinghe town. Don't hurt them. Everyone took a closer look and realized that there were 7 or 8 people hiding behind the middle-aged body cultivator. There were men and women of all ages, and one of them was the old face that had appeared at the staircase earlier. Everyone got into their attacking stances. Their faces were tense, and there was no smile on their faces. They are zombies. No, they aren't zombies, they aren't. Jin Jingheng's hands tightly hugged 2 9- and 10-year-old children as he looked earnestly at Su Shanshan. Chapter 197. In the darkness, the 2 sides confronted each other. The second floor was completely silent. Su Shanshan frowned as she looked at the children in Ah Jin's arms. Her gaze then shifted to the 7 or 8 townspeople behind Aujin. These people did not look like zombies. Other than their extremely thin bodies, dry lips, and thick dark circles under their eyes, there seemed to be nothing special about them. Aujin nervously hugged the 2 children and vigilantly scanned Su Shanshan and the others. "How long have you been here?" The girl's cold voice emerged from the crowd. Her teammate subconsciously moved to the side, revealing the girl's small figure that was half a person's height. When such a small figure stood in the crowd and coldly questioned them, the air was so oppressive that it was almost suffocating. Aujin was so nervous that he didn't dare to meet her eyes. Qinghe Town and our village had a zombie outbreak on the same day. If my guess is correct, these people probably ran into Qingfeng Academy to hide for more than 10 days. The soft childish voice carried an eerie chill. "You are all normal people. I really want to know how they managed to survive these 10 days with no food and water." Following her words, Su Shanshan and the others tensed up again. They gripped their weapons and assumed a battle stance. Little Mississippi, the elderly man who had shown his face at the staircase earlier, walked shakily to Aujin's side and said with a sincere expression, "I am the mayor of Qinghe Town. I beg you experts, please don't harm our town's townspeople. Everyone is already very pitiful." The old man trembled as he walked toward Su Shanshan and wanted to salute her respectfully. Xiao Mu suddenly released an iron arrow, which abruptly struck the old man's left arm. The old man fell to the ground with a loud thud. His torn sleeve revealed an arm with twisted veins. His fingers were slightly bent, and his fingernails were abnormally sharp. "He mutated," Arbor said coldly. The iron arrow had clearly pierced through the old man's arm, but no human blood flowed out. Everyone gasped at the same time. The mystic cultivator's weapons were covered in a layer of mystic energy. The body cultivators clenched their fists, and the superhumans were all ready to attack. Arbor finally understood why he felt uneasy. Since the level 3 corpse crow had appeared, it meant that there was a level 3 corpse puppet here. The large flock of cadaveric crows was intimidated by the level 3 mutated corpse puppet, so they only hovered in the sky and did not descend. Once they were summoned, the consequences would be unimaginable. Level 1 and 2 zombie puppets would only stupidly strangle their opponents until they stopped breathing and became a dead man. Moreover, it would take a certain amount of time for a dead person to slowly mutate into a rank 1 zombie. Level 3 corpse puppets were completely different. Compared to the previous 2, level 3 corpse puppets were not only faster, but their strength was also greatly increased. A level 3 mystic cultivator could effortlessly dispose of 3 to 5 level 1 and level 2 zombies, but when faced with the simultaneous attacks of 3 to 5 level 3 zombies, they could only be suppressed and beaten. The scariest thing was that these monsters that had evolved into level 3 corpse puppets had become fond of eating human flesh. Once scratched by a level 3 corpse puppet, the victim would also mutate into a corpse puppet after the incubation period of 15 days. They would completely lose their human thoughts and enter a state of brain death. Arbor only took one look at the old man's arm and knew that the old man had entered the late stage of the incubation period. It had been at least 7 days since his arm was scratched by a level 3 corpse puppet. "Kill them." The old man curled up his body and suddenly exploded with an ear-piercing roar. Chapter 198. Along with this roar, his body shook with force. A tightly shut wooden door suddenly burst open, and a corpse puppet with one blind eye and half of its face covered in white fur rushed out. It had an extremely ferocious appearance. The thick stench of blood rushed into everyone's nostrils. Boom! Su Shanshan promptly threw out a burst of mystic energy, forcing the zombie to retreat several steps. At the same time, the Holy Water Sect senior and junior sisters revealed their blades and covered themselves in mystic energy, working together to encircle and annihilate this zombie. In a flash of cold light, the mystic cultivators had already surrounded this level 3 zombie. Level 3 zombie, concentrate your mystic energy and hit its head. Arbor shouted as he coldly stared at this zombie. This zombie was an ordinary level 3 zombie. According to her calculations, there should be a level 3 mutated zombie here. Could it be that it was still hiding in the dark? Hence, Arbor did not join the battle. Instead, his icy gaze searched the surroundings. Duanyu. I'm here. Duanyu grabbed the child's hand. Make this place brighter. No problem. The youth finally had a use for his skills. He happily took out a small bead from his pocket and lightly flicked it with his finger. Swoosh. That object flew into the air, illuminating the entire second floor. He thought he would receive the child's praise, so he turned to look at her with a beaming face. Unexpectedly, he received an irritated eye roll. Duanyu. Are you the beads of an abacus? He plucked and moved. As teammates, shouldn't they have taken out illumination pearls to illuminate this place? Duanyu was speechless. No, this illumination pearl is very high class, okay. The area it illuminated could support the entire floor, and it was very convenient to carry around. It was 1/5 smaller than a normal luminous pearl, but it was much brighter. Only the concealed weapons patrician family, the Duan clan, had this kind of illumination pearl. 2 years ago, when he left the Duan clan in a rage, he plundered many good things, including the map of the Hulun Mountains Peach Garden Mystic Realm. However, in the end, that mystic realm benefited this little girl instead. Just thinking about it made him angry. Do you still have the core ravaging thunder you used to blow up the mountain last time? Take out those too. If the corpse crows rush down later, blow it up. The little girl said ferociously. Duanyu looked at her very helplessly and aggrievedly. But the core ravaging thunder is very difficult to create. Ever since we parted ways at Hulun Mountain, I have only made one. If I use it now. Use it. The little girl patted the young man's waist. Actually, she wanted to pat his back, but she was too short. But I only have one. The little girl glared fiercely at the young man in front of her. In less than 3 seconds, the young man was defeated. He pouted and said, 2 by 2 then. I'll give it all to you. After taking the 2 core ravaging thunders from the miserable young man and putting them in his pocket, the little fellow turned his head to look at the corpse puppet that was roaring with all its might in the encirclement. That zombie was basically under the control of the mystic cultivators. Although he was a level 3 zombie, he couldn't do anything when he fought alone and encountered a team led by Su Shanshan, a level 7 mystic cultivator. No matter how ferocious he was, Su Shanshan's 2 bursts of mystic energy was enough to make this zombie collapse. Everyone followed the little girl's instructions and slashed at the zombie's head with their mystic energy-imbued weapons. The old man lying on the ground revealed a bone-deep hatred in his eyes. He pounded the ground and bellowed, "You bunch of brats, you think you can subdue it like this?" Bang bang bang. The wooden doors of several surrounding rooms cracked open at the same time, and groups of zombies staggered out. They looked around in a daze before suddenly pouncing at Su Shanshan and the others. Chapter 199. Bang! Bang! Arbor fired several bolts in succession with his crossbow. Each bolt could blast open a zombie's head without missing a target. This type of normal crossbow could only fire 5 bolts in succession at most. Thus, after Arbor killed 5 zombies, he did not install more bolts in the crossbow. Instead, he put away the crossbow and swung his fists. Mystic energy erupted, and beams of white light shot toward the zombies' heads that surrounded him, attacking them indiscriminately. In the chaotic battle, the 7 or 8 Qinghe Town townsfolk held their heads and dodged to the side in horror. One of them was hit by the mystic energy ejected by the mystic cultivator and fell to the ground with a wail. Ajin hugged the 2 children and hurriedly shouted at the crowd, "Stop! Listen to me, all of you, stop!" The young mystic cultivator, Yang Shu, paused in his attack and was almost caught by a zombie that pounced out from the side. A mystic light suddenly exploded on the zombie's hands. Following that, a black ferrule floated into the air and swung at the zombie's head, causing it to explode. The ferrule returned to Arbor's hand after a smooth black ink. Yang Shu was startled, then hastily turned his head and nodded gratefully at Arbor. Thank you." Arbor coldly swept his gaze over Yang Shu and Ajin. He harshly rebuked in his soft childish voice, "Soft-hearted. They've all been infected and have entered the incubation period. In essence, they're no longer your kind. Being merciful will only cause your own deaths. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Once these people complete the incubation period and completely mutate into zombies, they'll become level 2 zombies or higher." Yang Shu lowered his head in shame. He was actually not as decisive as a little girl. He had truly been foolish for so many years. "Kill them all." Arbor coldly threw down this sentence and ignored Ajin and the others. He turned and flew to eldest senior sister Su Shanshan's side to help deal with the several dozen zombies that surged out of the side room. How could you? How could you be so cruel?" Ajin's expression instantly changed as he hugged the 2 children. Could it be that the child meant to kill everyone present? But they were just some innocent townspeople of Qinghe Town. There were actually 40 to 50 zombies hidden in the rooms on the 2nd floor. However, most of them were only level 1 zombies, and they were facing a group of mystic cultivators and body cultivators. Within a few minutes, Arbor's group disposed of all the zombies. As soon as he turned around, the old mayor of Qinghe Town abruptly jumped up from the ground and opened his mouth to howl. His old body swayed as he raised his hand to grab Arbor. The mouth was wide open beyond the scope of a normal human being, and a distorted old face was infinitely enlarged in front of Arbor. Bang! The child stretched out his leg and kicked the old man in the stomach. Even the surrounding companions felt their hearts skip a beat. They felt that this kick should be very painful on the old man's body. The old man curled up his body and twitched on the ground for a while. He struggled to stand up. Arbor didn't wait for him to get up and smacked him on the head with his ferrule. With a soft pop, the old man's head exploded like a smashed watermelon. The townspeople of Qinghe Town trembled as they looked at the little devil in front of them. Everyone huddled together with fear on their faces. "Disperse. Search all the rooms on the 2nd floor," Su Shanshan ordered with a cold expression. "Pay attention to the situation. Don't let these zombies touch you." Chapter 200. The entire team moved, quickly rushing to the rooms on both sides in groups of 2 or 3. Knocking sounds rang out as several rooms were broken open at the same time. A thick smell of blood assaulted their nostrils, causing them to involuntarily cover their noses and hold their breaths. "Senior Sister Su, quickly come and look." Yugue covered her nose with one hand as she stared at one of the rooms in shock. Su Shanshan and Xue Xiao hurriedly walked over. Yugue moved to the side to make way. More than a dozen women and children with unfocused gazes were tied up in the room, and each of their mouths was stuffed with something, preventing them from making any noise. The child's gaze was abnormally cold. He stepped on the corpses of the zombies and slowly walked to the townspeople. "Are you still unwilling to speak the truth at a time like this?" Ajin was completely baffled, but he still tightly hugged the two children. He turned to look at a short woman who was wiping her tears with her head lowered. Ajin, tell me, what exactly is going on? Why did you lock Granny Wang and the others in the room? What exactly are you doing? Ajin's arms tightly wrapped around the two timid children as he anxiously asked the woman called Ajin. The young woman, who had been sobbing and wiping her tears with her head lowered, suddenly stopped her vexing cries when she heard Ajin's question. She slowly raised her head. A pair of eyes with very heavy dark circles narrowed slightly as she coldly looked at Ajin. He couldn't react for a moment when this expression appeared on his usually virtuous wife. Ajin suddenly pounced over and raised her hand, looking like she was about to slap the middle-aged body cultivator. However, before her hand could touch the body cultivator, it was brushed away by a vibrating mystic energy. Ajin fell heavily to the ground and groaned in pain as she clutched her nearly broken palm. Why did you attack her? Ajin agitatedly turned to glare at Arbor and angrily shouted, Ajin is only a normal girl. As a powerful mystic cultivator, don't you feel ashamed attacking a normal person? Not at all. Xiao Mu coldly replied with 2 words. You. Ajin's eyes widened in anger. Shut up. Xue Xiao impatiently roared and pointed her sword at Ajin. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish right now. Don't endanger your teammates. Xiao Xiao. Su Shanshan calmly pressed down Xue Xiao's arm and looked at Ajin with a frown. I thought you were a qualified teammate all the way here, but now, I have to say that you have disappointed us greatly. Duan Yu flung out a silver glint and directly cut open Ajin's arm. He glanced at Ajin indifferently. Look at her arm clearly. If you had been scratched by her just now, I'm afraid you would have joined their ranks very soon. Little junior sister saved you, and you still have the cheek to talk back to her. You've been training outside for so many years and are so much older than others, yet you're still so naive. I really don't know what you've been training for all these years. Duan Yu glanced at the dumbstruck Ajin again. Ajin's arm had already turned slightly black, and the bones in her fingers were abnormally curled. Soon, spikes would grow out of her fingertips, and after the incubation period, she would become a level 2 zombie. Ajin looked at his virtuous wife with a face full of shock. Suddenly, he raised his head and cried out, Why is it like this? You still have the cheek to ask me. Ajin clutched her arm and staggered to her feet. She glared at Ajin with burning fury in her eyes. Chapter 201. When the children and I were in danger, where were you? When the children and I were on the brink of death, where were you? When the children and I were short of food and rice, and had nothing, and were about to starve to death, where were you? The 3 consecutive heavy questions made Ajin dizzy and his face pale. He hugged the 2 children's shoulders tightly, trembling all over as he looked at his wife who questioned him with tears and blood. You still have the face to question me. The young woman finally stood up, pounding her chest hard as she shouted herself hoarse, If I hadn't sought refuge with the mayor. If I hadn't racked my brains and struggled at death's door to survive with the children. Do you think that after more than 10 days, would you still be able to see me and the children? Ajin knelt on the ground powerlessly with a thud. A grown man actually cried on the spot with tears streaming down his face. We're just ordinary people. The young woman approached Arbor and the others step by step, shouting with all her might, We just want to try our best to survive. Survive, survive. Is it wrong to do this too? The second floor of the Qingfeng Academy was dead silent. Everyone slowly fell silent under the woman's questioning voice, and for a moment, they were actually speechless. The young woman sobbed, her voice trembling as she said, "We're not like the lords who have the ability to protect themselves and have supreme power. You were able to survive in such a terrible world. How would you know how fragile the lives of ordinary people are? There's indeed nothing wrong with wanting to fight for your life." Su Shanshan nodded lightly. "However, in order to fight for your life, you turn a blind eye to the lives of your companions and raise your companions as food for the level 3 zombie. This kind of inhumane method really can't be accepted by others." Arbor raised his head slightly, and a faint smile flashed through his eyes as he looked deeply at Su Shanshan across the crowd. Eldest senior sister was extraordinarily intelligent. As expected, she saw the problem with a glance. Qing suddenly covered her face and cried bitterly. Jean cried as he pounded the ground and looked up at his wife. "Is what she said true? Is it? Where are your father-in-law and mother-in-law? Did you also give your father-in-law and mother-in-law to the zombie as food?" Qing suddenly cried and knelt down, her tears soaking her clothes. She couldn't help but shake her head and say, "I didn't want to. I didn't want to either." Su Shanshan's cold eyes stared fixedly at Qing, who was crying on the ground. She said softly and firmly, "For the sake of our lives, we can choose to lose our dignity. But at the very least, as humans, the bottom line that we must uphold is something that we absolutely cannot lose." In front of Qing's eyes, the scene of her parents crying silently flashed past. In front of her eyes, the lively and cute children of her brothers and sisters flashed past. For the sake of survival, she had already completely abandoned her own nature, and had already completely abandoned these close relatives of hers. Qing sobbed and murmured, I'm sorry. There was no turning back now. After the zombie tide broke out in the town, we were forced to move here. Qing silently shed tears and said softly, "But soon, some of us died of illness, and the nightmare began. After the mayor's son and daughter-in-law died, they both mutated. It's this level 3 zombie that you're talking about. He's the mayor's son. The mayor said that he had a way to control this pair of powerful zombies, but he requested that we provide one of the townspeople as food every day." Chapter 202. Your Excellency, you're right. It's truly very lowly and pitiful to lose our dignity and struggle at death's door like this. Qing closed her eyes. We've already thrown away too much in order to survive. We've completely lost ourselves and have no future. But in reality, the little girl was right. We were still infected in the end. Qing turned to look at Arbor and cried with a bitter smile. We discovered this situation 2 days ago. One of the townspeople suddenly mutated. My hand and the children's hands were all scratched by her. Jin's entire body was cold, and his hands were trembling. Bit by bit, he removed the tattered clothes on the 2 children's arms. His gaze was fixed on the bruises on the children's arms. Such a big man hugged the 2 children and cried until he lost his voice. Everyone was silent, unable to say a word. Even the most cold-hearted person could feel some kind of emotion flowing in their hearts. Your Excellency. Just kill us. Qing silently shed tears and slowly lowered her head. Even if you don't kill us, we won't be able to survive in a few more days. We'll even become terrifying monsters that other people loathe. I'm only an ordinary woman. I've lived my life without any dignity. But this time... Qing's voice was choked with sobs. I want to die with dignity, with my children. Together forever. A faint trace of regret flitted through Su Shanshan's cold eyes. Your Excellencies, please don't kill the mayor's son for now. If you bring him out, those crows in the sky won't wantonly attack you, Qing said. The mayor's daughter-in-law is even more powerful. After you leave, you must remember to be extremely careful. Also, the imperial court sent a troop of soldiers here earlier. They're sealed off at the northern farm. A townspeople with dark circles suddenly spoke. Because powerful zombies like the mayor's son and daughter-in-law appeared here, those low-level zombies that mutated at the beginning didn't seem to dare to come over. However, they're gathered at the farm. If possible, I hope that your excellencies can save even more people. Don't let them become as miserable as us. Tears silently welled up in the eyes of the senior sisters from the Holy Water sect. They pursed their lips and couldn't bear to look at Ah Ching and the other townspeople anymore, so they all turned their heads away. Ah Ching, this time, our family will not be separated again. Ah Jean stopped crying and hugged the two children tightly. He looked up at his wife. No. Ching was shocked. She shook her head and said, "Go. I don't want you here. You are no longer qualified to die with us." Ah Ching. Ah Jean carried the two children to his wife and held her hands tightly. "No, I'm qualified. From now on, I will no longer abandon you and the children for the sake of pursuing illusory strength. We will be together forever, forever, forever." Ah Ching pursed her lips tightly and tears rolled down her cheeks. Although her body was cold, when she clenched her fists, it was incomparably hot. Even her dead heart began to thump, 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 thump. "Have you decided?" Su Shanshan stared coldly at the middle-aged body cultivator. "Yes." The middle-aged body cultivator stood up and bowed with one hand across his chest. "Thank you, my teammates, for your support and help along the way. I want to be willful one last time to be with the person I love the most. I wish you all the best on this trip." Xiongli turned her head away and couldn't hold back her tears anymore. "Okay. We respect your decision." Su Shanshan nodded lightly. Everyone stood before this middle-aged body cultivator with awe and respect. They raised their hands in unison and bowed with one hand across their chests. "We wish you all the best, our friend." Xiao Mu took a deep breath and blinked before turning around and heading downstairs first. Duan Yu's gaze followed the child. It wasn't until everyone tied up the level 3 zombie to the first floor that they heard a muffled explosion from the second floor. Chapter 203. Watching his teammates go to their deaths with smiles on their faces as they reunited with their families, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Arbor reflexively clenched her small fists and raised her head slightly. She felt like she was standing alone on the edge of a cliff. Her vision was blurry in the boundless darkness, and she couldn't hear or see anything. Suddenly, a pair of gentle hands picked her up and gently patted her back. Arbor smelled a familiar scent and laid her small head on Su Shanshan's shoulder. Her muffled voice came from her shoulder. "Eldest senior sister. Don't be afraid. Eldest senior sister will protect you." The child's heart skipped a beat and she didn't move away from Su Shanshan's shoulder for a long time. Only Su Shanshan felt a drop of iciness rolling down her neck. The child softly murmured, "Eldest senior sister, if only I had met you earlier." If she had met eldest senior sister in her previous life, no matter what happened in the end, she wouldn't have had to fight to the death for her dignity and honor. Su Shanshan's heart tightened. For some reason, she felt that when the child softly murmured those words, her heart seemed to be filled with sorrow. "You won't be alone." Su Shanshan strode forward with the child in her arms. Xue Xiao and Li Ling dragged the trussed-up corpse puppet. The group took a deep breath and moved toward the entrance of Qingfeng Academy. After everyone moved away the tables and chairs blocking the entrance, Xue Xiao and Li Ling dragged the level 3 corpse puppet to the front of the group. Although a Qing said that with this level 3 corpse puppet in hand, the flock of corpse crows in the sky would be more cautious, everyone's hearts were still hanging by a thread. They all entered a tense state of preparation for battle. After Xue Xiao and Li Ling dragged the level 3 corpse puppet out of the door, the group of people behind them walked over. Everyone was a few steps away from the two of them. They looked up at the sky and saw the flock of corpse crows hovering in the sky. Sure enough, they were just hovering in the sky and didn't show any signs of swooping down. Only then did their suspended hearts slightly relax. Su Shanshan promptly said with the child in her arms, "Go north." The group from Heavenly Dao sect went north, but according to the townsfolk of Qinghe Town, a large number of corpse puppets had gathered there. There were even troops sent by the imperial court that were trapped there. I hope things aren't that bad. The child held the 2 core ravaging thunders in her pocket. She didn't want to use these 2 hidden weapons that could blow up half a mountain unless it was absolutely necessary. Although the core ravage thunder was powerful, its sound was also abnormally terrifying. Such a sound would gather a large number of zombies. Even the zombies outside Qinghe Town within a 50-kilometer radius would be attracted. The group ran towards the north of Qinghe Town. They didn't run far before they saw a group of people from the Daybreak sect led by Shang Kuan rushing toward them in a very sorry state. When the two teams met, Shang Kuan rushed towards Xue Xiao and Li Ling and shouted anxiously, "Run!" A large flock of black corpse crows was coming from that direction. 3 of our teammates are trapped inside and haven't made it out. Captain, look! A member of Shang Kuan's team pointed at the flock of corpse crows circling above Xue Xiao and the others. The heavens really wanted them dead. The flock of corpse crows that Xue Xiao and the others brought over was at least 10 times more than the ones they encountered. Wait, under the siege of so many corpse crows, how did Xue Xiao's team come here unscathed? Chapter 204. Shang Kuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Oh my god! What the hell is this? Xue Xiao and the others are so capable. With such a large flock of corpse crows behind them, they didn't even bat an eyelid. They even had the leisure to wave and greet them. Senior brother Shang, you're here too. Just in time, let's not go to the central bridge. Come with us to the north to find the people from Tiandao sect. Who's just in time with you? Shang Kuan really wanted to curse. Are these women crazy? They clearly know that there are so many corpse crows circling the sky, yet they can still maintain their composure. Xiong Yan, Xiong Li, are you okay? A young man in Shang Kuan's team quickly walked out and ran to the two. We're fine, Brother Guran. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go north together. Xiong Li nodded. We sacrificed 3 of our brothers. Shang Kuan wiped his sweat. Originally, their team only had 18 people because they chased away Qiao Wenwan and her husband. Now, the team only had 15 people left. We're also missing 2 teammates. Xue Xiao didn't say anything more to Shang Kuan. She dragged the level 3 corpse puppet that was tied up like a dumpling and quickly headed north. Only then did Shang Kuan and the others realize that this group of fierce girls actually kidnapped a ferocious-looking corpse puppet. They even crazily stuffed the corpse puppet's mouth with a lump of mud so that it couldn't roar. It could only stare with a distorted face. Is this something that girls can do? Shang Kuan shuddered for no reason, exchanging glances with his fellow disciples. Let's go. Xue Xiao and Li Ling dragged the corpse puppet and continued to run forward. The group immediately followed their footsteps, walking side by side. Second senior brother, let's follow them. Look, those corpse crows in the sky don't seem to have any intention of attacking them. Shang Kun felt that the girls were a bit unreliable. However, if they turned around and left now, the large flock of corpse crows would definitely chase after them and bite them. They almost couldn't handle 1/10 of the corpse crows before. Could they handle it now? The answer was naturally no. Shang Kun immediately led the team and followed behind. The group of more than 30 people rushed towards the northern farm. What came into view was a large brownish-yellow field. There were traces of planting on the ground, but most of the crops had withered. The remaining edible plants had probably been picked clean by the townspeople when the chaos began. The farm was right behind the field, but halfway through, they saw 2 severed limbs. Looks like they were attacked as well. The group did not stop. They continued to run forward until they reached the entrance of the farm. Then, they drew in a breath of cold air. There were at least 200 to 300 level 2 zombies blocking the main entrance. They were all swaying and banging against the door and walls, looking extremely stiff. The farm was surrounded by a large wall. The main entrance was a wooden fence. At this moment, there were at least 30 to 50 zombies blocking the entrance of the wooden fence. They were all foolishly ramming themselves against the fence that was on the verge of collapse while letting out loud roars. Situi and the rest carried a lot of logs over and piled them at the entrance. The group of people hid behind the logs and released their profound energy at the zombie horde. However, this wouldn't last for long. Mystic Cultivator's profound energy was not inexhaustible. A genius young mystic cultivator like Situi could continuously release profound energy for no more than an hour. Once profound energy was completely exhausted, it was a very troublesome matter. Its recovery would become abnormally slow. Chapter 205. A blue storage talisman floated in front of Arbor. Previously, she had stored half of her bows and arrows in this blue talisman to deal with unexpected situations like this. After all, it was very difficult for the Heart of Paradise to be exposed in front of everyone. However, talismans were different. Even if people knew that she was a talisman practitioner, it didn't matter. Moreover, at her age, very few people would link the creation of these talismans to her. 15 bows and arrows, along with a pile of arrowheads, poured out of the talisman and poured out in front of everyone. Storage talismans. Shang Kun and the others dazedly looked at the little girl with slight astonishment. Those skilled in archery, take a bow and follow me. Arbor took a bow and waved at everyone. Don't waste mystic energy. Pay attention to preserving your strength. Excellent. Xue Xiao picked up a bow with one hand and hugged a large pile of arrowheads. She chuckled. I'll broaden your horizons and let you see how great this lady's equestrian archery is. Count me in. Me. Among the 15 people, there were both body cultivators and mystic cultivators. They picked up their bows and followed Arbor's small figure. Those level 2 zombies circled around the high wall and foolishly gathered together. Naturally, there wouldn't be dozens of them gathered in every place. Arbor deliberately led everyone to a place with fewer zombies and randomly picked a place where only a dozen or so zombies were gathered. Everyone knocked their arrows. Without needing Arbor to say anything, the arrowheads uniformly shot towards the zombies' heads. As a man, Shang Kun naturally felt embarrassed to hide behind a group of little girls, so he naturally took a bow and shot. Unfortunately, his technique was poor, so the first arrow missed and stuck into the wall. This angered the targeted zombie, which turned its head and wobbled toward him with bared fangs and brandished claws. Whoosh! The child's arrow exploded that zombie's head. Shang Kun's arm trembled slightly. When he turned to look, he saw the child, who wasn't even half his height, using her strength alone to draw a bow that was the size of her body. Her eyes were covered in a layer of deep ice, and no trace of a smile could be seen. Were all children this terrifying these days? Let's go. Arbor was the first to jump off the embankment and dashed towards the wall at an extremely fast speed. As he ran, he smoothly released 2 arrows in a row, directly shooting the 2 corpse hags that were swaying toward him, causing them to fall backwards. The group of senior sisters from the Holy Water sect rapidly followed behind her, and they couldn't help but praise her in their hearts when they saw this. No wonder Aunt Master, said that little junior sister didn't need them to worry about her at all. Their little junior sister was truly outstanding and dazzling. The child leaped and bounced up. His small figure swiftly moved over the tall wall and landed steadily with one hand on the ground. After that, everyone carried their bows and arrows and leaped over the wall and landed behind the child. Before they could even catch their breaths, everyone rushed straight towards the pile of logs where Situi and the others were. When Situi and the others heard the sound of something heavy falling to the ground, they nervously looked at the side of the wall, thinking that some zombie had climbed over the wall. In the end, they saw a group of teammates running towards them. At this moment, everyone in the Tiandao sex group felt their hearts heat up. They excitedly stood up from behind the pile of logs. How is everyone? Su Shanshan led everyone over in quick steps. Senior Sister Su, everyone's here. Situi looked at the people behind Su Shanshan with a moved expression. We're in the same team. If we're leaving, we'll naturally leave together. Su Shanshan tilted her head. Her gaze was as cold as usual, but her words made everyone's blood boil. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.